My death sentence arrived 2 days ago, and by yesterday, my girlfriend had already betrayed me. Diagnosed with terminal bone cancer, I rented a rotting shack to spend my final days in isolation. Dying of boredom, I clicked a rogue app that installed itself, adopting a starving magic girl with a shattered core. Little did I know the cheap starter pack I bought her wouldn't just change her fate in that cruel magical world. I thought it was just a game until my digital girlfriend handed me a high-tier magic potion. Suddenly that very bottle manifested in my hand. It looks like I won't be dying after all. My name is Silus, a college student who was just handed a late-stage cancer diagnosis. Immediately after the news, my loyal girlfriend ditched me, hopping a bus out of town overnight. With only $5,000 left, throwing it at hospital bills wouldn't have even made a dent. I dropped out, found a tiny room near the wetlands, and prepared to face the end quietly. As I lay waiting for death, a persistent, undeletable ad forced its way onto my screen. Installation complete. Claim your digital girlfriend. Normally I'd report this trash, but a dying man has nothing to fear. I had nothing left to lose, so I decided to see what kind of game this was. The graphics were breathtaking. Over a dozen anime girls modeled like AOA masterpieces stood before me. There was Eris, a cyberpunk mercenary with a lethal figure, a sci-fi mecha girl, and even a dragon-horned princess, but I've never been into flashy things. My eyes scanned the lineup, finally stopping on a girl in a simple linen dress. Firmament Order apprentice, age 19. Her face was pure without makeup, but her eyes were hauntingly hollow. Numb and broken, she looked like she was desperately pleading for help through the glass. This indie studio's art is incredible. I choose you. The moment I tapped, a blood-red warning appeared. Choice is permanent. No resets. If she dies, she vanishes forever. A cheap game trying to act dramatic. I hit confirm. The screen flashed. Instead of a fantasy village, I saw a rotting wooden shack unfit for dogs. Ayla was huddled in rags on a muddy, rain-soaked straw mat. She was covered in bruises and deep, jagged wounds. Half her face was stained with blood and rain. The modeling and her suppressed, agonizing gasps were so realistic it made my skin crawl. 3 crimson warnings slammed across the screen. Cold and starving. Physically broken. Afflicted by abyssal fire poison. Extreme pain. Lifespan remaining 1 hour. Damn it. This girl is literally dying. I panicked, frantically searching the screen for a first aid button. Ding. First top-up of $1 grants a home renovation pack. Give her a home, $1 done. The second the payment cleared, a brilliant golden light erupted across the screen. The shack underwent a miracle. The straw mat transformed into a solid wood bed with velvet quilts. The crumbling wooden walls restructured into sturdy brick and stone before my eyes. A fireplace and elegant furniture appeared from nowhere. I couldn't tear my eyes away. Ayla's reaction was heart-wrenching. Stunned, she immediately scrambled under the bed in pure terror. It took a long time before she carefully crawled out like a frightened, wounded kitten. She touched the soft bedding, eyes wide with disbelief. The mattress even dipped realistically under her weight. I was completely floored. This physics engine and these micro-expressions, this is a god-tier game. Before I could process it, the system's predatory combo arrived. $5 for a new dress. Done. $10 for a royal nutritious feast. I usually skip expensive takeout, but I kept paying. $15 for her backstory, $30 for defensive runes. I went on a spending spree. In just 2 minutes, I dropped over $100. The room was transformed. A feast sat on the table and 3 golden runes glowed on the door. Inside the game world, Ayla was paralyzed with shock by this sudden divine miracle. She cowered beneath the bed in total terror, leaving only one pale, shivering foot visible to the world. Seizing this brief opening, I scanned her newly generated medical profile. One glance was enough to ignite my murderous rage. This poor girl's existence was nothing short of a walking tragedy. Once a top-tier apprentice of the Firmament Order, she was destroyed for accidentally grazing the shoulder of that manipulative snake, Seraphina. Unbelievable. Every single man in the Crimson Spire had apparently lost their minds to darkness. Her eldest brother shattered her mana, while her very own mentor ripped the magic core from her body. The second brother forced lethal abyssal poison down her throat, and the third tossed her out like common trash. But the fourth brother's cruelty surpassed them all. He lured her into the wild, abandoning her broken body to be devoured by monsters. Are these obsessed simps actually insane? As I cursed their names, the girl on screen finally succumbed to the aroma and crawled from her hiding spot. She stared at the roast meat with a growling stomach, yet she was too terrified to touch the silver. Dropping to one knee before the empty air, she clasped her hands in desperate prayer. Junior humbly begs the Lord God to appear. If you remain hidden, I shall choose to starve rather than eat. A system window flashed asking for permission. I didn't hesitate to smash that allow button. A divine notification echoed through the shack. Crying with relief, she fell upon the food, devouring even the bones. Once finished, she meticulously wiped her face and carried the plate into the storm to wash it with rainwater. She was so heartbreakingly obedient, like a little bird that had been beaten far too many times. But as I pulled up the world map to survey the area, my heart suddenly skipped a beat. 5 menacing red dots were closing in on Ara's position at a terrifying breakneck pace. I zoomed in to see 5 massive shadow dire wolves with blood-red eyes. Meanwhile, she was still outside, completely oblivious. I hammered the screen frantically, but a fatal paywall blocked my every move. $15 for a telepathic scroll. Fine, take it. I bought the item and roared into the interface. Ambush. Get inside the house immediately. In the game, my voice boomed like a divine thunderclap from heaven. Ara jumped in shock, dropping her plate as she scrambled inside and slammed the heavy door shut. A second later, 3 shadow wolves shattered the rain, lunging at the entrance with their jagged, bloody maws. Boom! The storm flame rune I'd placed on the door ignited, unleashing a blinding explosion of lightning and fire. 2 of the beasts didn't even have time to howl before they were reduced to piles of gray ash. Nothing remained of the predators but the acrid, lingering scent of scorched flesh in the air. Terrified, the survivors scattered to flank the house, trying to breach the windows and roof. Boom, boom! The runes on the windows detonated in sequence, sending 2 more charred corpses crashing into the mud. The final wolf fled toward the dark mountain's tail, tucked in fear. Suddenly, a launch special offer appeared. Do you wish to buy the lightning scroll to punish this coward? Only 45. If I don't pull these weeds by the roots, they'll only return. What if he brings back the entire pack? Top up instantly. A massive bolt of golden lightning struck from the clouds, vaporizing the fleeing beast. Only a smoldering, blackened crater remained where the shadow wolf had once been. 5 monsters wiped out in 30 seconds. Ara collapsed, staring at the divine carnage with wide, disbelieving eyes. She pushed the door open once more, falling to her knees amidst the torrential downpour. Juniora offers her deepest thanks to the Lord God for saving her wretched life. Seeing her safe made every cent worth it. With the crisis averted, I finally checked her detailed status bar. The girl was currently suffering under the weight of 5 separate fatal debuffs. From a shattered foundation to soul-devouring poison, her body was a wreck. She tried to meditate to recover, but the progress bar only plummeted. The strain was so immense that she began coughing up fresh blood. I desperately wanted to help, but the system shop prices were absolutely extortionate. The only bargain was a Thursday special, a high-tier mana array for 30 for 10 hours. I bought the crystals and flags, which manifested around Ara's feet, to form a massive glowing sanctuary of power. Ala stared at the mana crystals, her jaw dropping in sheer disbelief. In this realm, these treasures were so rare, even demigod-level monsters had to hoard every fragment. Yet this mysterious lord tossed them around like common trash, recklessly squandering the gifts of heaven. Wiping tears from her eyes, Ala refused to let even a shred of his kindness go to waste. She instantly sat cross-legged, desperately absorbing the liquefied mana surging within the magical array. Watching her experience bar climb, I set my phone down satisfied. To support her, I made a choice. I'll return to Twitch streaming for cash. Despite my late-stage bone cancer, I'll climb Pike's Peak for views. Every cent counts. Even if I die, this girl must survive. I slept until the clock struck midnight. My alarm blared, waking me. Checking my phone, I saw the mana gathering array had finally expired. The array flags dimmed as the crystals crumbled into lifeless gray ash. Allah's complexion glowed with life. Her rank finally broke through to junior magic apprentice. Just as I breathed a sigh of relief, greedy top-up pop-ups flooded the screen. Digital girlfriend shop open. Monthly special first buy only $2.99. Daily mana potions and 1 free divine infusion included. I exhaled sharply. This indie studio really has the nerve to demand such a king's ransom. Seeing Ayla suffer from that lingering fire poison, I gritted my teeth and paid via Face ID. I don't have much time left anyway. A mountain of gold can't buy this kind of happiness. 2 heavy silk pouches tumbled from the sky. Allah curiously opened the first bag with a clatter. 50 mana crystals rolled out an elite apprentice's entire monthly stipend. Next, she opened a ruby-like potion. An epic restoration potion, Allah exclaimed. Her eyes welled with tears. These crystals and potions were absolute lifesavers tailor-made for her survival. She bowed to the void, swearing to repay me. Suddenly, a system prompt flashed in my face. Healing is about to begin. Use the divine infusion to heal her personally. I froze in place. Personally? How personal? I clicked confirm and chose a cool line. Make it quick, I'm busy. Hearing my voice from the void, Allah blushed deeply. She nervously fidgeted with her skirt and stuttered. My lord, I'm too dirty. May I wash first? This game actually has a bathing scene. I agreed immediately. She entered the bath. Being a gentleman, I tentatively tapped on the door. Affinity too low to peek. I scoffed. Please, I'm a man of culture. I wasn't even looking. Soon the bathroom door slowly slid open. Through the swirling steam, Allah emerged in a thin towel. Water droplets glistened on her pale skin. She knelt on the bed, her back turned, and slowly untied the towel. The fabric dropped, revealing her flawless, graceful back. My heart stopped. A new prompt flashed on screen. Use your left finger on her spine and your right to massage her magic core to channel mana. Holy crap. They meant personally in a very literal physical sense. I placed my fingers on the screen. In-game, Allah let out a soft, suppressed groan of surprise. From Allah's perspective, 2 massive hands reached from the void and pressed firmly against her back. Ancient arcane power surged through her limbs and deep into her bones. It forced the fire poison out through her pores. As I massaged the screen, the progress bar filled. Circuits repaired, injuries healed, fire poison purged. Allah was drenched in sweat, her skin glowing like porcelain. Clutching her towel tightly, she blushed and spoke to the empty room. My lord's kindness is a mountain. May I dare ask for your esteemed name? A text box appeared. Skipping the flashy handles, I simply typed in my real name. Silus. If I die, at least this world will remember me as the starlight shattering the night. Lord Silus, I will remember. She looked back and gave me a radiant smile. Her eyes were incredibly gentle. That smile shattered my defenses. How could this just be digital data? She feels like a real person. I opened the help center to fix her shattered star. To mend the fractured starseed, a relic of ancient divinity is the only key. Aegis remolding holy water hidden within the pool of destiny. A guaranteed drop at 15,000 draws. $15,000 for a pity pull. This is highway robbery. I ripped off my hat, setting a frantic alarm for tomorrow's medical checkup. I'll scale the heights of Pikes Peak if I have to. That 15,000 must be mine. Little did I know, as the system linked with the Eye of Truth, the game's digital realm suffered a cataclysmic upheaval. Across the continent of Ethgard, reality itself began to warp under the strain of an omen. Stars shifted their alignment as hidden demigods and ancient horrors trembled in their dens. They feared a deity was scrying the laws of the world. In reality, he was just stressing over $15,000. That night, the storm finally subsided into a heavy silence. Drained of mana, Ara bit her finger, tracing Silas's name in ancient elven script upon tattered flags. This was no mere trinket. She was weaving her own life's luck into a divine talisman of protection. My lord, please do not look down upon this humble offering. She laid the amulet on the table, her eyes fluttering shut as exhaustion claimed her. At dawn, I was met with crimson warnings. Using the Eye of Truth, had triggered a cosmic backlash. Fortune calamitous. Avoid mountains. I scoffed. I'm already fighting late-stage bone cancer. How much worse could fate get? If I don't reach that summit, Ara's world stays broken forever. I headed for the door, but a sudden knock echoed through the room. I opened it to find the hallway empty. Yet there it was, an unmarked package lying on the floor. No logos, no tracking numbers. Only a single line of elegant cursive, a small gift from Ara for Lord Silus. My heart hammered against my ribs as I stared at those ink-stained words. A cold sweat broke out across my back. A gift from Ara. Isn't this just a damn game? I tore it open. Inside sat a handcrafted sachet with messy, earnest handwriting. Silus, may you stay safe and sound. As I leaned in, a hauntingly beautiful fragrance drifted into my senses. It wasn't some cheap synthetic scent. It was pure, tranquil, and ethereal. It felt as if a living, breathing girl was standing right there beside me. Impossible. Game items were manifesting in the real world. This game was far more dangerous than I imagined. The Star Sea was dying. To save it, I needed $15,000 for the Aegis Holy Water. I shaved my head clean and pinned my cancer diagnosis to my Twitch profile for the world to see. By afternoon, I was at the base of Pike's Peak, hitting the Go Live button. The title was a punch to the gut: Terminal Bone Cancer 5-Hour Pike's Peak Summit Challenge. The chat exploded, instantly mocking me and calling my tragedy a stage scam for views. A local hothead named Chad even threatened to track me down and expose my lies in person. At midnight, Chad and his crew blocked the path, sneering as they demanded I show them my fake leg. Without a word, I rolled my pants up. The horrific purple tumors of osteosarcoma were bared for all to see. The air left the room. Chad's smug expression crumbled into a mask of pure shame. He slapped his own face in regret before flooding the stream with 10 super rocket donations. The tide turned instantly. Hate transformed into a roar of support as the viewer count hit the stratosphere. Each step was a battle. The cancer felt like a serrated blade sawing through my very nerves. Drenched in sweat, every movement felt like my leg was being dragged across a bed of burning nails. A crowd of worried onlookers began to follow me, their eyes filled with growing dread. Near the summit, a sickening crack echoed through the air. My leg buckled and twisted unnaturally. I slammed into the jagged rocks. A pathological fracture, my bone had finally snapped under the pressure. Screams of horror erupted from the crowd. Chad scrambled for his phone, ready to call 911. I gnawed my lip to stay conscious. Pulling a folding cane from my bag, I dragged my broken body forward. Retreat impossible. I'm only a few $1,000s short of saving my cyber wife. The stream erupted into total chaos. A legendary whale with a god-tier title dropped $15,000 without a single word. The funds were ready. I reached the summit of Pike's Peak just as dawn broke. Shadows twisted in the sky, revealing a mirage of an ancient Roman legion. A divine phantom descended through the clouds, staring at me with piercing golden pupils. Miracles didn't matter. I had to get down the mountain and save a life. I boarded the cable car as several tattooed thugs crowded into the cabin. Just as the heavy doors were sealing shut, my amulet snapped. As I reached for it, the entire mountain began to scream. Rumble. A massive boulder pulverized the cable car ahead of us into twisted metal. Using the momentum, I rolled clear of the ticket hall and escaped death. I survived only to learn those thugs were actually notorious drug dealers. Ignoring my shattered leg, I crawled to a convenience store to keep my phone alive. I launched the game only to be met by a barrage of blood-red warnings. A monster tide was slaughtering Ara. My eyes burned with rage as she neared death. On screen, her home was leveled. Ara lay broken amidst a mountain of corpses. Her clothes were shredded, revealing deep, agonizing gashes across her entire body. Clinging to a broken blade, she spat out blood while still trying to protect others. My fingers blurred as I bought out the shop's entire stock of flame runes. 200 runes rained down, turning the battlefield into a literal hellscape of thunder. Every single monster was instantly incinerated into nothingness by the divine flames. Even the hidden traitor was struck by an epic rune until her soul shattered. The crisis ended, but Ara collapsed with an empty health bar, unable to move. The system was ruthless. She was too weak to even swallow a recovery potion. I desperately activated the Eye of Truth, searching for any way to save her. $1,500 for a secret healing art I topped up without a second thought. Skill unlocked. Mithril needles and a complex acupoint map flashed onto my screen. My heart raced as my fingers danced across the glass in a frantic rhythm. I precisely guided every silver needle into her acupoints before drenching her wounds in potion. Her wounds vanished before my eyes. Finally, her life was no longer in danger. My screen died. Only then did I realize I had been rushed to a hospital. Beside me sat an old man with a fractured leg, and right there, a set of traditional silver needles sat on his nightstand like ancient relics. My hands twitched. The game's muscle memory was now deeply burned into my soul. I snatched the needles, my body moving on pure instinct, guided by the game. I drove 36 needles into my own swollen leg with divine rotating precision. I pulled them out and the bruising vanished instantly. The game's skills were real. This was no longer a game. I immediately canceled my surgery and checked out. I bought my own needles and limped to a burger joint to recharge. My $15,000 bonus arrived. Time to go all in on the gotcha pulls. Golden light exploded. I finally pulled the legendary Aegis holy water from the pity. Back in the game, Ara finally opened her eyes, her gaze filled with despair. I activated a voice scroll and threw the holy water down. "Drink this now!" Ara stared at the bottle, which radiated an overwhelming and divine magical pressure. She trembled in fear, refusing to accept a treasure of such astronomical value. "My lord, I cannot accept this," she cried. "Heh, stubborn AI." "Enough talk," I roared. "This item is useless to me, and I've already caused a scene. Drink it now, or you're just a burden." My gaze burned with a crimson intensity. Suddenly she dropped to one knee, slamming her right fist against her heart. Facing the heavens, she swore a divine oath. "Ara has received my lord's overwhelming mercy. Should you command it, I shall serve without fail. I will brave mountains of steel, cross seas of eternal fire, or descend into the abyss itself. I would die 10,000 deaths for you." Her words resonated with the very laws of reality, sparking a powerful cosmic vibration. A violent gale whipped her hair as she drained the holy water in a single desperate gulp. Boom! The digital sky shattered as a pillar of azure light pierced the firmament. A mana cyclone surged toward the heavens. Across the continent of Ethelgard, ancient entities stirred in terror. Countless threats pounced toward the forest like rabid beasts. The system intervened once more. A divine relic had surfaced, sending shockwaves through the entire world. "Spend 5 to hide the truth," the prompt asked. I cursed but paid. Instantly, the revealing blue light vanished. The continent's legendary masters were left wandering the peaks like lost children, unable to find any trace of Ara. I watched Ara through the screen. As her life force surged and her mana core began its rebirth, I finally let out a breath. While she absorbed the elixir's power, I dove into my inventory to sort through the loot from my 1,000 pulls. Amidst the mountain of junk, a single item caught my eye, a mysterious slate glowing with a divine golden radiance. I opened it to find a mythic-grade technique, the Astral Blade Codex. My heart raced with pure excitement. This was the peak art for a magic swordsman. I couldn't wait to bestow this power upon Ara. Suddenly, a crimson alert flashed. Player must master the basic realm of this technique before sharing it. Then, the front camera suddenly activated. A spectral figure appeared on screen, assuming a classic knight's stance, on one leg sword held high. I was utterly speechless. This insane game was forcing me to train in the real world. Gritting my teeth, I realized I had no choice. I grabbed a drying rack from the hotel closet and dragged my broken cast-heavy leg across the floor. I struggled to mimic the pose for an entire hour. Drenched in sweat and pain, my progress only moved 1%. I collapsed, feeling as though my very skeleton was shattering into a million pieces. A sudden thud echoed from outside. Opening the door, I found a small black kitten lying helpless on the ground. Its legs were torn and bloody, with strange feathers clinging to its back. It looked like it had been dropped by a predator. I carefully placed the poor creature into a shoebox. It was nearly midnight, far too late to find an open animal clinic. I pulled out my silver needles and suddenly a complete anatomical map of a cat flashed in my mind. My hands moved like lightning. With a few precise strikes, the bleeding stopped and the wounds began to seal. Satisfied, I headed off to shower. I didn't see the kitten's eyes snap open golden vertical slits, filled with a murderous demonic hunger. It wasn't a cat, it was a beast from hell. Meanwhile, the game took a turn. After consuming the holy water, Ara's mana sea was reaching its final volatile stage of transformation. As she meditated, a glowing blue magic circle manifested at her core, vibrating with immense power. A perfect star sea alert flashed. An undead monarch is watching. Purchase the Guardian package to protect her. The cheapest option was 30. I paid instantly. Suddenly, the sky turned a sickening shade of crimson as blood mist rolled in. Malikar, a demigod-level necromancer, appeared in the sky with a chilling, twisted laugh. He struck downward his death energy, forming a massive, bloody hand that eclipsed the sun. It plummeted toward Allah's cabin. Smirking, my fingers flew across the screen. I activated the lightning fire barrier. Ancient runes ignited, forming a glowing dome that smashed against the skeletal palm. A virtual keyboard flickered onto the screen. Input the divine incantation perfectly to launch a counterattack, the system screamed. Drawing on my recent needle training, my fingers became a blur of speed, clacking against the screen with rhythmic precision. A flash. Searing lightning and hellfire erupted from the formation. Thunder crashed, slamming into Malikar and charring his face instantly. With hair wild and frizzled, the old demon unleashed his Tier 3 power. A monstrous green specter of death loomed behind him, slamming its palms down. The dome began to shatter. "Watch out!" Ara's panicked cry echoed out. I grabbed the Judgment Thunder rune from my inventory, ready to end this. I keyed the mic. "Die, you insect!" The rune ascended like a rising sun. Total darkness swallowed the sky as violent chaotic storm clouds began to churn. I traced the seal. Boom! A purple dragon devoured the demon's avatar instantly. Then the true judgment arrived. 10,000 bolts struck at once, turning that arrogant demon into gray ash. HP 0. I blew on my fingers. $30 for a wipeout, satisfying. The chaos was so immense it drew the attention of the Firmament Order. Two familiar faces appeared: Grandmaster Valerius and his crippled, pathetic disciple Julian. I remembered their bullying well. Now they stood trembling before my scorched crater. Julian hit the dirt, sobbing toward the sky. "Oh, great one!" he wailed. "My cultivation is shattered. Please grant me the Aegis remolding holy water. I will be your slave." A prompt appeared. Grant a miraculous encounter. I laughed in pure rage. He wanted my loot. I gripped the scroll. "Rot in hell. Go find a puddle and look at your own trash reflection. Get lost," I roared. Inside the game, fierce winds began to howl. That shout boomed like thunder. Valerius and Julian turned pale as ghosts. The cowards fled in disgrace. In the cabin, Ara heard my furious outburst. She paused, then broke into a beautiful laugh that lit up the screen. She offered a handmade crystal bracelet. "My lord, please take this protective amulet. I made this for you. System, received a gift from your digital girlfriend." A wave of warmth filled me. Suddenly, exhaustion pulled me into deep sleep. At midnight, the shoebox creaked open. That mysterious black cat stepped out. Its form twisted, casting the shadow of a colossal ancient beast on the wall. It locked onto my throat and lunged, its razor claws glinting with lethality. As its claws reached my throat, the dragon tattoo on my back ignited. The dragon's eyes blazed open with a roar. A dark tail whipped out. Like swatting a fly, the dragon tail slammed the cat back into its box. The black cat coughed up blood, trembling in terror of the true predator. It hid in the corner, paralyzed. Meanwhile, I just rolled over, snoring loudly. Morning came with a ring. My game rank reached high-tier apprentice. After claiming my Battle Pass rewards, a sudden knock echoed through my room. I grabbed my crutches, but the hall was empty. Only 2 packages remained. Ara's crystal bracelet felt icy and carried her scent, washing away my exhaustion. The second box was huge, over 5 feet long and heavy as stone. I sliced the tape. Inside lay a massive forged crossguard sword, dark and formidable. Runes pulsed on the heavy blade. I drew it and its cold edge shimmered. I dropped a single hair onto the edge. It split instantly before touching steel. It sliced iron like paper. Who the hell runs this company to mail this? Gripping the runic blade, I opened the Astral Blade Codex. It was time. Practicing in a cramped room with a drying rack was useless. I needed space pajamas be damned. Hobbling on my crutch, while hauling that rack, I headed straight for the plaza across from the hotel. An old man was already there practicing medieval swordplay in the center of the square. I ignored him and mimicked the screen's salute while wincing in agony. The old man finally snapped. He marched over and slapped my shoulder with surprising force. "Listen, kid, your stance is trash." He kicked my knee and forced my shoulders down with both hands. Pain flared and I nearly lost my temper until something caught my eye on the ground. It was my phone screen, lying face up on the pavement. As he corrected my form, I gasped. The Blade Codex progress on my screen was surging at terrifying speed. The bar rocketed from 2 to 13%. "Master, please accept me as your student." I tossed the rack aside and bowed deeply. Old Arthur looked quite pleased with his new disciple. He smiled, adjusting my stance, but once he felt the cast and the hard tumors beneath his face paled. He immediately grabbed my pulse, his expression turning grim. Cold sweat dripped from his brow. 10 deaths, no life. He looked at me, his lips trembling. "Sharp eyes, old man," I grinned calmly. "Late-stage bone cancer. I'm on borrowed time now. While I'm still breathing, I'll do everything I was too afraid to try. Consider it early retirement." The old man stood speechless, his eyes filled with a deep, crushing sorrow for my fate. With a heavy sigh, he told me to return every morning. He would personally teach me swordplay. Back at the hotel, I realized something. Last night, 30 minutes of practice had nearly killed me. Today, I trained for 6 hours straight without food, yet I felt more energized than ever. I could even memorize complex moves after seeing them just once. Then, it finally clicked. The cancer cells were killing me, but they had also awakened my latent genetic potential. I couldn't let this photographic memory go to waste, not while I still had a chance. I opened the game's skill panel, Holy Spirit Acupoint Piercing Level 2, Mana Circuit Opening. Requirements 1,000 needle strikes or pay 150. I didn't have time for 1,000. It's only $150. Done. As the payment cleared, the icon exploded with golden light. The advanced technique was active, and inside the game things were reaching a breaking point. The power of the perfect mana star erupted with absolute force. Overnight, Ara's cultivation skyrocketed, pushing her to the very brink of becoming an official mage. But just as victory seemed certain, a sudden disaster struck. Ara turned deathly pale, coughing up black blood. A red warning flashed, "Inner demon attack detected." Deep within the darkness of her soul, the hypocrites of the Firmament Order appeared as monstrous ghosts. Mentor Alaric roared with fury. "You harmed your own sister. You are a disgrace, expelled from this order forever." Senior brother Lucius sneered. "A pathetic girl like you wants to be a mage. How laughable." The others joined in demanding she vomit up the very potion she had worked for. And behind those ghoulish faces stood the innocent Seraphina, the one who had stolen everything. She hid in the shadows, giggling at the sight of Ara's soul-crushing suffering. "Someone like you doesn't deserve life, sister. Why don't you just disappear?" Their venomous words became literal blades, shredding Ara's soul. My blood began to boil with rage. These animals were crossing the line. I immediately activated the Eye of Truth to find a solution. To break the demon, she must return and sever her karma, reward 1 heart protection potion. I fed her the potion and triggered needle mode. The battle for her life had begun. The screen split. Ara was drenched in sweat, her clothes clinging to her shivering body. This was no time for fan service. I focused entirely on the glowing golden magic nodes. Left hand weaves while the right dances, turning arcane mana into silver needles that strike with divine precision. Within the nightmare, skeletal phantoms dragged her screaming toward the crushing depths of the eternal abyss. Suddenly, a celestial blade's hum shattered the void. blinding radiance descended, incinerating those wretched spirits into ash. She gazed up, witnessing a white-haired sovereign in obsidian robes, a five-clawed black dragon roaring at his side. "My lord." She bolted awake, gasping as the illusions vanished, leaving her trembling and soaked in a cold sweat. Waves of soothing warmth flooded her core as invisible mana hands tenderly massaged her aching body. Realization struck like lightning. Her face flushed a deep crimson, burning with shy and intense embarrassment. As I prepared to stop, thunderous pounding rattled the cabin door. "Open up right now," a voice barked. I recognized that voice. Lucius. That scoundrel tracked the remnants of yesterday's magical fallout straight to our door. His senses were sharp, immediately detecting the peak-level mana fluctuations radiating from within our sanctuary. Met with silence, he channeled an explosive fireball into his staff. Suddenly, 3 system prompts flickered before me. 1, obliterate him, 2, crushing suppression, 3, shatter his hearing and brand him a dark mage. Killing him wasn't an option yet. This piece of trash was reserved for Allah to finish personally. I chose option 2 immediately. Before the fireball could ignite, a mountain-sized pressure slammed down, warping the very air with its weight. Crack! The sickening sound of snapping bone echoed as Lucius's knees shattered the floor tiles beneath the sudden impact. He was pinned like a broken insect, unable to even twitch beneath the weight of that overwhelming gravity. Terrified, he realized a hidden powerhouse was inside and began groveling. "Forgive me, I am Lucius of Crimson Spire. I didn't know a master was present. Please have mercy on my ignorance." I activated the voice scroll and roared, "Silence!" A gale-force wind blew the doors open and shut. The shockwave sent Lucius flying, coughing up blood. Then Ayla stepped out, her gaze sharp and cold. She stood in a fresh gown, her presence as freezing and sharp as a legendary unsheathed blade. Lucius scrambled up, masking his malice with a fake smile. "Sister, come back to the sect with me. When we return, everything resets." He spoke of sacrifice while plotting to steal another's talent. His hypocrisy was truly sickening to witness. "Lucius, I will return tomorrow." Allah's voice was dead calm, severing her final ties to the past. Seeing the killing intent in her lifeless eyes, the coward turned tail and fled in total terror. I reached into my inventory, tossing her the moon-concealing blade, a divine artifact stripped from a fallen demigod. "This is yours now. Fight without regret." Suddenly, my real-world phone began to vibrate with an incoming call. It was a call from the director of Wilderness Ventures, a massive and popular reality show production. "Mr. Silus, your mountain climbing footage has completely broken the internet. You are a viral sensation. Millions are watching. We want you as our mystery guest for the Blackwood Mountain expedition next week. Agree now and $100,000 will be wired to your account this instant." I signed the contract immediately. With the funds secured, I rushed to the hospital, desperate for any hope. I prayed this money could buy me a few more precious days on this earth. The doctor's expression was grim. "It's too late. The cancer has invaded your entire body and brain. It is terminal. Take your earnings and try to enjoy your final few weeks, young man." It was a death sentence, yet walking out, I felt a strange, chilling sense of relief wash over me. Life is fleeting, but in the game I can still become a god. The next day at 12 p.m. The scene shifted. Ayla, clad in white and wielding the moon-concealing blade, marched toward the main hall alone. Grand Magus Alaric stood tall. Behind him stood the senior disciples, with that manipulative fox Seraphina hiding in their shadows like a coward. Alaric looked down from his throne, his voice booming like thunder across the entire plaza. "Do you confess your crimes?" Alla gripped her sword, her voice cold as ice. "I am innocent. A broken outcast dared defy a Grand Magus, impudent worm, grovel before me." Alaric's murderous pressure surged, then my phone screen suddenly locked up. A golden notification flashed. "Create your avatar first," I cursed out loud. "All that cash spent, and now you demand a new character?" Seriously, I hit the shop. Elven hair 150, black dragon robe 600. God tier, visual effects, purchased, no hesitation, pure whale energy. 3 seconds later, a white-haired swordsman in dragon robes dominated the screen. Absolute perfection. Then came the pay-to-win traps. Peak Mage Trial 150. Grand Magus 1500. Peak Demigod 30,000. My balance was ready. I didn't blink. My finger slammed onto that Peak Demigod option. Password confirmed. 30 grand vanished in a heartbeat. Boom. On screen, my character erupted in a divine light that shattered the heavens. A demigod's tsunami-like pressure leveled Ethelgard, crushing Alaric's puny aura into dust. I gripped the telepathic scroll, ready to unleash hell. With ice in my eyes, I roared, "Who dares touch her while I'm here?" The moment those words fell, two monstrous spiritual pressures clashed with explosive force. Alaric's spirit broke instantly. His disciples were pinned down their faces, turning purple. My voice dripped with disdain. "I am only here to settle her debts. Harm one hair on her head, and I'll tear down the heavens." Grandmaster Valerius panicked, restraining Alaric. These old fools were finally terrified. I marched to Draven, slamming evidence of his disgusting crimes right into his face. Consumed by shame, Draven drew his blade, challenging Ara to a death duel. Ara unsheathed the moon-concealing blade, her expression colder than ice. She moved like a streak of divine light. A loud clang, and Draven's weapon shattered. A brutal gash tore across his chest. He collapsed unconscious and bleeding. Draven down. Next was Cedric the Snake, who framed his own sister. She invoked the Great Tao, swearing a soul oath to prove her innocence. Divine lightning nearly ended her, but I bought epic holy water to save her. Knights dragged Cedric away. They ripped out his tongue and gouged his eyes. Cedric ruined. Now for Cullen the coward who poisoned her. I purchased abyssal fire poison, swapped his pills, and forced him to choke them down. Triple fire poison ignited his veins. His eyes rolled back as he collapsed. Finally, Lucius stepped forward, unleashing the forbidden strike that once defeated her. Ara's gaze remained frozen. Her blade became a blur, unleashing a 14-strike execution. Lucius's sword flew from his hand as the shock forced him to his knees. The cold edge of the moonblade rested perfectly against his trembling throat. Lucius broken, I watched Ara slaughter her past and sever every lingering debt. I exhaled in satisfaction. That 30,000 was worth it. Then the doorbell rang. Limping on my crutch, I opened the door to find a courier holding a sleek case. "Mr. Silus, this is your custom gear from the Wilderness Ventures team." I signed for it and clicked the case open. A cyberpunk gaming helmet lay inside. The manual read brain-computer interface. My heart hammered against my ribs. Could this device actually transport me directly into the game world? I didn't hesitate. I strapped that high-tech helmet on. Let it explode for all I care. My $30,000 won't go to waste. Then everything went pitch black. In a flash, my vision cleared, revealing Allah's elegant figure standing directly before me. I could sense the blood racing beneath her skin as desert winds swept the dunes. Scanning the area, this was a perfect one-to-one replica of the Firmament Plaza. I was physically there. Beside me, Lucius prepared to shatter his very own mana core. Suddenly, a roar of pure, unbridled fury detonated from the heavens above. "You traitorous filth, abandoning your path for a mere woman rot in the penance dungeon." The Grand Magus Alaric finally snapped. This demigod was desperate to save his favorite disciple. "Still protecting your own, still hiding behind those pathetic hollow excuses, Alaric?" Crimson system warnings flared, granting me full control to crush him in this holographic space. I smirked as the overwhelming pressure of a peak demigod erupted from my soul. This exalted one commands silence. "Step back, Alaric, or this becomes your final grave." The world went cold. Alaric raised his scepter, his aura crashing down like a tsunami. He whispered to his allies, convinced I was just a clever illusion with no bite. Reality itself began to buckle and warp violently around my very presence. I stepped forward, white hair flowing as I gripped the hilt of my black-scaled blade. A monstrous black dragon phantom roared behind me, coiling around my steel amidst the thunder. Allah turned her gaze, locked onto me completely, forgetting how to even draw a breath. "Stay back, girl. The slaughter starts now." Externally calm, yet I was internally panicking. Skill icons flickers to life. How do I even navigate this broken virtual reality interface? Do I just click the shiny buttons? Then the combat tutorial officially flickered to life. Time froze instantly, a spectral mirror and a training target manifested out of thin air. The system synced with my mind, allowing me to trigger god-tier skills through thought. I watched my avatar in the mirror and swung. The wooden target shattered into dust. The first form of the Astral Blade Codex awakened in my mind, my sword sang out. I transformed into a streak of pure white light, obliterating the target in a heartbeat. I blinked back with effortless grace. It was so cool I felt a genuine chill. Absolutely incredible. The tutorial ended, time flowed, and I locked onto my prey. You like to meddle, old man? Then today I will offer your life to heaven. 10th stance, Silver Moon. Daybreak, my blade shifted and the air screamed under the pressure. Now witness the true power of this exalted one's sword. A shimmering silver moon rose from the earth as I delivered a casual, devastating slash. The very clouds split in two as my murderous intent locked onto the Grand Magus. He snarled, activating his ultimate galaxy shield to tank the incoming destruction head-on. But can a mere spark outshine the moon? My sword light shattered his pathetic defense. The plaza was instantly riddled with 10,000 jagged holes from my residual sword intent. Alaric collapsed, coughing blood and leaning on his ruined scepter like a broken beggar. I stepped through the moonlight, ignoring the trash, and loomed over a trembling Lucius. Lucius's face turned deathly pale as he swallowed hard, his eyes wide with terror. I will do it myself. He slammed a fist into his gut, forcefully reversing his mana. He clutched his ruined core, rolling on the ground like a common dying dog. I turned toward the shivering Seraphina. She played the victim, weeping like a frightened doe. But my system vision cut right through her act, revealing her true terrifying stats. 347 years old. A hidden succubus. She was a top-tier monster. Even worse, my flashy performance had completely drained my mana bar. I was empty. Hand over the water element core. Seraphina gritted her teeth, her gaze turning sharp. If she broke her seal to retaliate, her true identity would be fully compromised. Considering the risks, she feigned innocence, puffing out her chest while looking away in submission. With a predatory sweep, I lunged forward. As I grabbed her, a system prompt instantly flashed. I forcefully extracted Ara's top-tier water core along with her concealed earth and wood dual cores. Stashing them away, I shot her a chilling look. Seraphina stood there completely paralyzed. Not even a legendary powerhouse could normally pierce through her succubus bloodline illusion. Convinced I was an abyssal demon lord who knew her secrets, she was too terrified to breathe. Targets crushed, vengeance served, and loot secured, but now my mana is bone dry. Time to bail. Suddenly an ancient voice echoed. An old woman in white leaning on a dragon-head staff appeared beside Alaric. Though she emitted no aura, a primal, instinctual fear made my very skin crawl. She struck her staff against the stone, sending ripples of pure authority through the air. Every elder of the Firmament Order in the plaza collapsed to their knees simultaneously. The Order's hidden trump card, the legendary High Priestess, had finally arrived to save her juniors. Classic web novel tropes never fail. Hiding my face in shadows, I demanded, "So you're the big boss?" The crowd gasped. Provoking a legend as a demigod was pure suicide. Sensing the imminent danger, I desperately commanded the system in my mind to top up. Upgrade to peak legendary, access denied, insufficient balance. Holy heavens! I cursed as the priestess fumed. A massive 6-armed stone avatar erupted behind her, blotting out the sun in its divine rage. System options 1. 5 credits for a teleportation scroll to make a quick escape. Option 2, 15 credits for a 30-second late-stage legendary trial card. Option 3, 30 credits for a charm boost. Real players take them all. Transaction confirmed. 50 credits deducted. Instantly, my power surged, skyrocketing through the realms to late-stage legendary. Behind me, a colossal black dragon avatar manifested, letting out a world-shaking roar. My dragon suppressed her stone avatar instantly. Seeing my maxed-out charm, her murderous intent vanished. "Zephyr, is it truly you?" She had mistaken me for her long-lost former lover. I didn't hesitate. I coldly declared that our karma was settled before preparing to leave. I crushed a high-tier teleportation scroll, grabbed Ara, and we vanished from the scene instantly. Using telekinesis to carry her, we boarded a flying sword. This game's realism was terrifying. High-altitude winds whipped against my face, threatening to peel my skin back. Her mouth was hilariously distorted by the wind. Then a new quest appeared: join the sanctuary. Finding her a guild felt like finding a daycare. We eventually touched down at a tavern. My play session was ending. Seeing her look like a stray kitten, I spun a lie. My true self is currently locked in a mortal struggle with a great abyssal lord. I've been hit by a lethal toxin, so I can only manifest this projection. Her face drained of color. She dropped to her knees, trembling with pure devotion. Tears streamed down. "My lord, I will master alchemy and brew your cure no matter what." I warned her that her fire magic would clash violently with the path of alchemy. Without a word, she smiled sadly and shattered her own mana circuits, dispersing her power. If my cultivation is an obstacle to saving you, then I no longer need it. My heart ached. This AI's resolve was too painfully realistic to witness. I handed her the ultimate water cultivation manual, titled Mysteries, to replace her lost power. She looked up hopefully. "Are you taking me as your disciple?" I cleared my throat. "From today, you are my sole inner circle direct disciple." Using tavern tea, she performed the formal initiation rite, bowing with deep respect. I secured the room with flame runes for her protection and immediately logged out. As I pulled off the helmet, a heavy thud echoed from my bedroom door. I opened it to find 2 mysterious delivery packages waiting on the floor. Inside were 10 glowing fire runes and a cup of steaming elven tea. Unbelievable, my legendary game loot had actually manifested in the real world. I downed the tea instantly. My lifespan timer flickered like a dying heartbeat before stabilizing at a healthy number. I ripped the cast off my shattered leg. The bone had completely fused together. Testing my luck, I sliced my finger, only for the wound to vanish instantly. I had evolved into a superhuman with god-tier regeneration. My hellhound cub cowered as the runes on my window pulsed with power. I had no time for his fear. After tossing some quick food to the cat, I grabbed my bags and raced toward the airport. The moment I stepped into the terminal, every single eye was locked onto me. The mirror revealed a god. My skin glowed with a cultivator's aura, radiating an otherworldly, irresistible charm. On the plane, the flight attendants were practically throwing themselves at my feet. The girl beside me sat there, her face flushing a deep crimson. She finally held out her phone, desperate for my social media. My brain honestly just froze. Still lost in my immersion, I scoffed. This plane was a joke compared to my soaring spirit sword. Terrified by my coldness, she quickly pulled her hand back. Meanwhile, back in Skyfall City, Ara's supreme water affinity was causing a massive scene at the plaza. A high-ranking healer from the Emerald Star Valley immediately took notice of her talent. She led Ara to meet Elena, the guild's heir. Behind a red veil, the master asked a chilling question. "Do you have a male mentor?" Ara nodded. "Yes, I do." The room turned ice cold. "Get out." A massive wave of mana sent Ara flying through the doors. The mage apologized, explaining that Elena was betrayed by a man and now harbors a soul-deep hatred for them. No man dares enter their valley. To even study there, a male mage must sacrifice his own manhood. Ara stood lost. She needed their medical secrets to save me from the deadly poison in my veins. Suddenly, a pale wizard reeking of cheap perfume and malice blocked her path with his gang of thugs. "Since that witch kicked you out, why not join our joyous sect instead, little sister?" He suggested a dark dual cultivation path. It was the joyous sect, one of the 3 great evil cults. Ara's expression turned to ice as she reached for the deadly magic runes hidden in her bag. The wizard's smirk turned hideous. "You're coming with me whether you like it or not," he snarled, closing in. Just as Ara prepared to detonate her runes in a final stand, a lazy voice thundered from above. "That is enough." The shout echoed through the sky like a lightning strike. A massive black sword smashed into the ground like a meteorite, separating Ara from the group of cultists. A gale-force wind erupted, carrying the heavy, intoxicating scent of aged rum. Leaning against the blade was a veiled woman in leather boots, casually swinging her legs with effortless grace. Her wine flask clinked against the steel hilt, spilling a few drops onto the dusty street. She let out a massive drunken burp, looking down at the thugs with pure contempt. We have claimed this girl, she sneered, her voice cold and sharp. Now get lost before I lose my patience. With those words, she leaped from the sword landing with a heavy thud on the pavement. Though swaying drunkenly, she hoisted the half-meter-wide blade with one hand as if it were a mere toy. The pale wizard recoiled in terror, his face turning an ashen shade of gray. Realizing she was a master-level warrior, he drew his blade, trying to hide his trembling hands with bravado. "You dare challenge our sect?" he barked. "I will show you what I'm made of." "Oh, is that so?" Suddenly, a withered skeletal hand emerged from the shadows and caught his sword with bare fingers. It was a masked, gaunt old man with a terrifying smile of rotten teeth standing inches from the wizard. The old man squeezed the blade, and with a sickening crack, that reinforced steel blade was crushed like mere tinfoil. The wizard turned pale, paralyzed by an overwhelming aura. He turned to scream for backup, but hope instantly vanished. 3 more black-clad figures stood waiting in a perfect lethal line. Each one hauled a heavy sack overflowing with stolen loot. His elite squad was already unconscious, eyes rolled back in defeat. "Hurry up, bag the last of it and move out." A 5th assassin dropped from the shadows, armed to the teeth. The wizard's heart sank as he squinted at the gear. That was his personal blade and clan heirloom. They had completely ransacked his sanctuary. Defeated, the wizard forced a pathetic, trembling smile to beg for his life. The old man just bared his yellowed teeth and sneered. "Artifacts, crystals, bags, hand over everything, even that amulet. Strip it all and drop it on the dirt." The ruthless elder didn't even leave the man his enchanted robes. Reduced to his undergarments, the wizard scrambled away in pure terror. Little Ara stood nearby, trembling at the sight. These bandits were more brutal than any dark sect, yet they showed no bloodlust. The old man approached her with a wide grin. "Little girl, you've got talent. Join our crew. Forgive me, senior, but I've set my heart on becoming an alchemist. I must reach Emerald Star Valley." A drunken woman nearby let out a loud burp. "We do alchemy too." She tried to refuse, but the man above ripped off his hood. "Cut the act and listen well," he roared. "We are the legendary Firmament Order." The others unmasked, revealing the flushed, beautiful face of the drunken lady. She winked at the young girl with a mischievous, charming smirk. "You've seen our faces and our crimes. Now you're coming with us." Ara was left utterly stunned and speechless. They were clearly wearing severed steel order tags on their belts. Yet here they were, boldly framing the Firmament Order. Before she could blink, the world blurred. The drunk woman snatched her up onto a massive flying sword. The wind roared as they soared into the heavens. Ara clung tight, her fear vanishing as she realized something familiar about them. Just like her own master. They never used windshields while flying. Meanwhile, at Skyfall City's Ascension Tower, Lady Elena awoke with a throbbing headache. The hall was littered with unconscious mages, all neutralized by a potent sleeping gas. Her hand flew to her waist. Her bag and staff, everything was gone. They had even stripped her jewelry. Painted on the wall was a mocking ghost face and the word firmament. Elena let out a sharp, hysterical laugh of pure rage. The Firmament Order did this. If they were responsible, she'd eat the dirt off the floor. Only the severed steel order scumbags were missing. Knowing the greedy nature of those penniless sword cultivators, those bastards were definitely framing someone else. Back in reality, I was in a car heading to my reality show shoot. Ever since I drank that mystical elixir from the other world, my cancer-ridden leg healed overnight. Even paper cuts vanish instantly. My body has undergone a terrifying superhuman transformation. My skin practically glowed, and I radiated an aura of divine otherworldly power. My driver couldn't stop staring, repeating the same thing 3 times. "Man, you look incredible." He slapped his thigh in sheer disbelief. "I've driven countless stars, but you're on another level. You look like a literal holy knight descended from the heavens. That pretty boy idol Zach. He's complete garbage compared to your god-tier looks." Just stay low. He's got a nasty ego, so don't cross him. I just smirked inwardly. I'm a terminal patient with nothing to lose. Why would I fear some spoiled actor? If he tries anything, I'll show him true despair. Deep at Blackwood Mountain, the film crew was busy preparing. Zach, the top-tier idol, made a grand entrance flanked by a swarm of bodyguards. While the others prepped their gear for the grueling night hike, Zach arrived just to pose for the cameras like he was on a runway. Yo, I'm Zach, and I'm perfection personified. I look flawless shooting hoops, and even better conquering mountains. The chat exploded with mindless fan praise / Appa, you're so handsome, you work so hard for us. The director was frantic as the 9 p.m. deadline loomed / only. The mystery guest, the real star, had yet to arrive. Seizing the spotlight, Zach sneered toward the lens. So who is this mystery guest keeping us all waiting? What a big shot. I wonder if he's even half as handsome as me. His mindless stance instantly flooded the chat with venom, mocking anyone who would dare delay their precious idol. Pardon me, is this the Wilderness Ventures crew? My voice rang out clear from the cliff's edge. Lenses pivoted instantly as the spotlight found me. Leaning on my crutch, my bald head gleamed against the mountain breeze. One side of my face shone with lunar grace, while the other was swallowed by a dangerously abyssal charm. Silence fell like a heavy shroud. Only one thought occupied the minds of every crew member present. Handsome, devastatingly handsome. The live stream froze for a heartbeat before exploding into a chaotic frenzy. Holy hell, who is this guy? He's god-tier handsome. Sorry, Zach, I'm jumping ship to this new guy. This bald brother is 10,000 times hotter than Zach. That aura is legendary, a pure natural masterpiece. The director's eyes shimmered with greed. He rushed over, greeting me like I was a literal golden goose. Zach's expression curdled into bitter envy. Seeing his fame slip away, he pointed at my crutch to stir trouble. Director, we're hiking Blackwood Mountain tonight. Are we seriously bringing a cripple along? Do you expect us to babysit him until tomorrow afternoon? Look, I'm not hating on the disabled. But someone in his state should stay home, not leech off a top-tier variety show. The crowd gasped at his cruelty. Viewers were absolutely stunned. Zach's social intelligence was officially in the negatives. I didn't flinch, offering the camera a carefree smile. You're right, I am a burden. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Silus, a terminal cancer patient whose clock is ticking down. This summit is my final life's wish. Thank you for witnessing my last journey. I'm moving out now. The wind howled across the trail as I turned. Several makeup artists were moved to tears, covering their mouths in heartbreak at my words. Even Stella, the group's rising starlet, looked on with eyes rimmed in red. The chat erupted in a tidal wave of respect and grief, while others demanded Zach be canceled immediately. Backstage, Zach's manager was frantic, spamming messages for him to apologize. Zach's teeth ground together in silent rage. A top-tier idol like me apologizing to a nobody, he was certain I was faking it to trend. As the night hike commenced, Zach volunteered to lead, desperate to reclaim his lost screen time. He accelerated the pace, dragging the group through the pitch-black, treacherous mountain paths. He wanted to break me and expose my true colors. Meanwhile, the other male stars were wheezing like dogs. Zach halted and turned, drenched in sweat, as he tossed a mocking look toward the others. Can't you grown men handle a little walk? Look at Silus. Even as a cripple, he hasn't broken a sweat. It was a venomous trap, disguised as praise to make everyone doubt my condition. Every eye turned toward me. I stood calm, leaning on my crutch with a steady, rhythmic heartbeat. As if I'd tire, my body surged with mutated potential after that spirit tea cleansed my very marrow. Even my cancer cells felt like they were partying. This mountain climb was nothing but a warm-up. Honestly, I felt strong enough to shatter a bull with one punch. I just gave them a simple toothy grin. Stella's heart ached, convinced I was masking agonizing pain just to keep up with the group. To heighten the drama, the director lowered his voice mysteriously. Everyone stay sharp. Legend says an ambush wolf haunts Blackwood. It stands on 2 legs and taps your shoulder in the dark. The moment you turn around to look, it rips your head off in a single bloody gulp. Zach scoffed arrogantly. I'm nearly 2 meters tall. No wolf is reaching my shoulder. What a joke. Before he could finish, a mournful howl pierced the valley. The forest plunged into an eerie, dead silence. Zack froze as his shoulders grew heavy. Two massive, sharp claws clamped down firmly onto his frame. He shrieked in terror, tumbling backward and face-planting into the dirt as he scrambled toward the crowd. Flashlights cut through the dark, and a collective gasp of horror rippled through the group. A mutated wolf nearly 3 meters tall with fur like steel needles stood upright on the path. Its maw split wide enough to swallow a tire, dripping foul saliva as its glowing green eyes locked onto us. Terror paralyzed the crew, but I just smirked. Guess you can't blame me for lacking manners today. This beast was a joke compared to the primordial horrors I'd faced in the game's abyss. The wolf looked like a radioactive freak twisted by toxic waste. Honestly, it was almost comical. Our guide shrieked for us to retreat to the jeeps. In the panic, Zack was shoved aside by a starlet. "Aren't you a knight apprentice? Go fight it!" she screamed. Zack just broke down. "Study my ass. You want me to fight that? Are you insane?" His frantic yelling immediately enraged the massive predator. The beast dropped low, turning into a blur of shadows as it lunged toward the scattering crowd. A bone-chilling howl ripped through the air, and a second wolf suddenly burst from the underbrush. The main crew scrambled for the jeeps, but Stella, the cameraman, and I were completely cut off. Stella braced for the end eyes shut tight while the cameraman shook desperately, clutching his gear. The livestream viewers were panicking, calling for help. Meanwhile, I stood there steady as a mountain. I stepped forward, shielding them both as I dropped into a perfect low-profile horse stance. Raising my crutch like a holy blade, I crooked my finger in a deadly provocation. I Grand Mentor. Silus, who once shattered the gates of the Firmament Order with a single legendary strike, refused to be humbled by a mutt. I swung my crutch with the momentum of a divine sword. Crack the wooden crutch shattered into splinters instantly. The silence was agonizing. I turned to Stella with a tragic forced grin. "Don't look. Wind's too strong, run for it." We bolted. The wolf was briefly stunned by my sheer audacity. Enraged by the insult, it lunged for my throat. In a split second, I tripped over a rock. I tumbled backward and the ancient magic runes hidden in my coat spilled across the dirt. As I lost my balance, my right foot instinctively lashed out in a desperate blind kick. Crack! That heavy accidental strike landed squarely on the wolf's jaw. It didn't even have time to yelp. Its jaw exploded as it was sent flying, smashing through trees before vanishing into the thicket. Grimacing in pain, I tried to play it cool despite the chaos. Stella and the cameraman hoisted me up and we sprinted into an abandoned ranger's log cabin. "Stay ready. If they break in, jump out the window and don't look back. I'll defend this door with my life to buy you a single spark of hope." Stella wept at my sacrifice while the camera stayed focused. Meanwhile, the mangled wolf crawled out. Agony triggered its demonic evolution. Its body inflated like a grotesque balloon, muscles twisting. With fur like needles and eyes glowing blood red, it locked onto my scent, swearing bloody vengeance. It charged like a bolt of black lightning, unfortunately stepping right onto my dropped magic rune. Boom! A pillar of divine thunder descended from the clear sky, vaporizing the beast instantly. 5 minutes later, a young girl in a school uniform arrived at the smoking lightning crater. This was Trinity, a secret bronze-rank demon hunter who had been tracking the pack. Over by the jeeps, Zack's leg had already been mangled in a brutal encounter, turning him into a liability before Trinity ended the beast with a clinical headshot. Now staring at the charred remains in the crater, she gasped. A shattered jaw and heavenly thunder. "This is the work of a silver rank master," she whispered, picking a glowing rune from the ash. She felt the overwhelming righteous power radiating from it. Her hands began to tremble with fear. Not even the top hunters in the country could craft an artifact of this caliber. Following the tracks to the cabin, she burst in to find a student, a cameraman, and me. She immediately played the role of a scared child. "Oh no, is the big bad wolf gone?" I stared at the charred rune in her hand. I recognized my own handwriting immediately. "Hey kid," I asked, "where'd you find that?" Trinity froze, her heart skipping a beat. It's just my lucky tarot bookmark," she stammered. I didn't even bother arguing. I reached into my windbreaker, producing 5 more identical Thunderfire runes and slapping them onto my palm. This is clearly mine. See, I've got the whole set. Trinity's brain fried as her eyes nearly bulged out. The incident at Blackwood Mountain sent massive shockwaves rippling across the entire internet. Zach's fake persona shattered instantly, leaving him hospitalized and terrified. Meanwhile, Stella became famous for her saintly kindness. As for me, the footage of my stone-cold expression while facing down that massive wolf demon went viral. Trying to fight it with nothing but a broken crutch made me the nation's favorite tough guy. My bald alpha memes exploded everywhere. Now Trinity had her sights locked firmly onto me. Trekking down the mountain, she desperately used demon hunter codes to test me. "Winter is coming," she whispered. I deadpanned my reply, "I have a flashlight." My clueless look left her baffled. She couldn't tell if I was a hidden boss or just a lucky civilian. She dropped a small fortune to book the hotel room next to mine, starting a long-term stakeout. Honestly, I didn't have the energy to care about her games. After a grueling night of police statements, I rushed back to the hotel to plug in and log on. Last night, Ara was taken by those men in black. They claimed it was the Firmament Order, but that was a lie. They sent her to Emerald Star Valley, a legendary paradise for female healers. My apprentice hit the jackpot. This was a total win. Then the game screen suddenly flickered to life. There were no singing birds, fragrant flowers, or beautiful fairies. Instead, the ground was littered with broken debris and crumbling pillars. An eerie wind made a rotting door creak. A system notification flashed, "Your digital girlfriend has joined the guild, the Severed Steel Order." The Severed Steel Order is officially the poorest, most pathetic guild in all of Ethelgard. I stared at the digital junkyard in disbelief, my head spinning. Where the hell did they send her? This is the bottom of the barrel. Where's the eye of truth? I want a disability refund right now. But the sweet girl didn't complain once. Master Balan led her straight into the heart of the guild plaza. This old geezer stroked his long beard, letting out a boisterous, shameless laugh. He admitted they posed as the Firmament Order just to kidnap talent. Now they were planning their next heist. Ara stood there with a dark expression, but these old foxes weren't blind to her potential. Her S-tier water talent and perfect Starsea aptitude made their eyes glow with pure, unadulterated greed. Determined to follow her dream of becoming an alchemist, Ara made a bold move. She rejected the prestigious Sword Peaks and chose the desolate 6th Peak, which only had a single stone monument. Finally, she asked Balan if he knew a swordsman named Silus. The old fox's eyes rolled as he started lying. "I was the Order's first-generation Grand Mentor," he claimed with a straight face. He told her he was away slaying demons and to train hard. Ara actually believed him and followed her senior. This Severed Steel Order was a mess. Members just slept wherever they happened to fall. People were napping on giant tortoises or dozing off under waterfalls. They were professional slackers. After looking around, Ara finally selected the most dilapidated stone hut on the mountain peak. Back in reality, I was smashing fried chicken on my sofa while reading a sweet message from Ara. "Master, I miss you. I didn't go to the valley, but I joined your old guild, Severed Steel. The master here even says you're the legendary Grand Mentor." I was completely floored. Severed Steel Grand Mentor. This old fossil is a scammer, but I'll play along. It saves me from explaining things, but Emerald Star Valley will regret kicking out my disciple. They'll pay for this grudge soon enough. Suddenly, a familiar top-up window popped up on my screen. "Your girlfriend's home is a dump. Spend $10 to give her a cozy house," I scoffed. $10? Who do they think I am? If I'm going down in style. Top up. My jaw dropped at the prices. A mana array was 1,500 and clearing land was 800. It's basically a high-stakes Stardew Valley. I couldn't resist. I started tapping the screen like a maniac. Chin was dropping stacks like a madman. He deployed a mana array and a heavy armor shield to ensure Ara's absolute safety. Without a second thought, he instantly upgraded her primitive stone hut straight to level 2. Blinding golden light erupted. The crumbling shack transformed into a grand wooden cabin, complete with charcoal tiles and blue brick. From a luxury bathtub to a gourmet stove, everything was ready. Inside the game, Ara's legs turned to jelly from shock. She stood frozen by the bed, clutching her skirt as her face turned a deep, burning crimson. Her voice trembled as she pleaded, "Mentor, please stop. This is more than enough." I just smirked. If other players have it, my disciple deserves 10 times better. With a flick of my wrist, I summoned 10 high-tier magical spirit fields. The earth groaned as the barren soil churned. In an instant, 10 plots of fertile land materialized, glowing with an ethereal magical brilliance. Ara knelt before the fields, whispering, "I'm going to be way too famous." I closed the menu, satisfied. I even grabbed a discounted silk nightgown for $3 and airdropped it right onto her new bed. Ding, main quest complete. Rewards 9. Luminance elf grass and a pot of Gaia's divine soil. Suddenly, a new notification flashed. Only 30 days until the Middle-earth Ruins dungeon opens. Ara's survival rate. A flat 0. I need to fix that. Just then a delivery box thumped outside. I opened the door to find a stack of filthy, battered cardboard boxes waiting for me. Inside was a pot of multicolored sludge that looked like toxic waste with a shriveled weed sticking out. I scanned it with my phone, hoping for a miracle. The result? Just a basic plant. I swear these developers are scammers, who sends a pot of weeds as a legendary reward. Beneath the dirt was a Thunder Judgment rune with a warning, "Paste on pot to guard against gluttonous beasts." I shrugged and slapped the rune onto the pot before setting it on the windowsill. I headed to the kitchen for breakfast, unaware that Grim, the stray cat I found, was already drooling rivers. Its eyes were locked onto that grass. But the moment it stepped closer, the lightning rune roared to life. A world-ending pressure descended. Terrifying electric arcs filled the room. Grim scrambled back onto the sofa, shaking in absolute fear. The hellhound thought, what kind of monster uses divine thunder just to protect a common weed? If I touch that, I'll be vaporized. Meanwhile, I sat back and casually scrolled through my feed. The news was buzzing about a giant wolf attack in the Blackwood Mountains. Experts claimed it was just a mutated coyote. What a load of absolute garbage. Low aggression. That monster shredded a reinforced Jeep like it was made of wet paper. I stared at the wolf's charred remains on screen, then pulled those crumpled flame runes from my pocket. Something wasn't right. If lightning had struck it, the damage should have been on its back. But this beast had its leg blown off exactly like it had triggered a landmine. A sudden realization hit me like a truck. I didn't beat that wolf to death with a stick. It was the rune I dropped while I was running for my life. I grabbed my jacket and bolted out the door. It was time to test these runes for real. The moment I left Trinity, the demon hunter from 419 crawled up the wall like a gecko. Seeing her chance, she nimbly slipped through my window and into the apartment. Her demon hunter senses immediately locked onto the strange pot of grass sitting on the sill. Within the leaves, she saw the faint outline of a divine temple. Each vein pulsed with terrifying power. But as she stood there, frozen in shock and doubt, a murderous growl erupted right beside her ear. Grim had appeared out of nowhere, eyes glowing with malice. The cat looked at her like she was already a corpse. It raised a paw and swiped the air. Boom! A shockwave of black ripples exploded, sending Trinity flying before she could even scream. She crashed through the awning downstairs, her body slamming hard into the pavement. With 3 broken ribs and eyes full of pure terror, she struggled to even breathe. This monstrosity was no mere mutation. Its sheer magical pressure alone pinned her to the spot, crushing her spirit. Survival meant one thing: she had to reach the Demon Hunter Guild before it was too late. Grim let out a low hiss, darting a terrified look at the lightning rune before retreating into the sofa cushions. Ignoring the landfill's stench, I gripped the Stormflame rune, centering my focus for a devastating explosive strike. I unleashed the spell with a shout, but the rune just sputtered out limply, hitting the dirt like trash. I tried again and again, but it was useless. This legendary artifact was acting like a piece of worthless scrap. I let out a heavy sigh. Does this thing only trigger when it detects a real living pulse? At the plaza, I spotted old Arthur practicing. His eyes danced with excitement as he challenged me to watch his defense. The old man finished his routine with a smug grin, clearly fishing for a compliment from a young novice. I told him it looked like decent vegetable slicing. Offended, the master huffed. thinking I was just being a brat. He thrust a wooden sword at me, demanding a demonstration. I gripped the hilt and let my eyes fall shut. Suddenly, the astral blade codex from the game flooded my senses, engraving itself into my very soul and muscles. My body shifted instinctively, flowing through the first 12 chapters like a lethal, shimmering river of cold steel. Every strike was flawless. As my wrist flicked, the wind howled as if an ancient sword saint had possessed me. I brought the blade home with precision, my left hand steady on the scabbard, right hand poised for the finish. My eyes snapped open, a single flash to pierce the dawn. A frost that chills the very 9 realms. Light exploded as my wooden blade carved a blinding snow-white arc across the dim morning sky. The lingering light shattered into 1,000 brilliant fragments, exactly like a star dying in a burst of glory. The sword clicked into place. Arthur stood frozen, his jaw dropping as if the heavens had just collapsed before him. Seeing the leaves hadn't even stirred, I shook my head and tossed the practice sword back to the old man. Pathetic. I'm losing my touch. I couldn't even manage to nick a single branch with that pathetic swing. I'm heading out to the market. I need to pick up a fresh fish for my dinner tonight. The moment I turned the corner, Arthur's legs gave out. He stumbled toward the massive oak tree, trembling with shock. There it was on the thick trunk. A microscopic razor-sharp pierce right through the heart of the century-old oak. A dull wooden sword had fired a blast of pure sword intent. Shaking, he scrambled to call the guild. Briggs, get here now. I've found a monster who can project raw sword energy with a toy. Captain Briggs arrived, his face turning pale at the sight. This was the work of a silver rank master. Their guild was already hanging by a thread, and not a single one of them possessed this level of mastery. Arthur gripped the captain's arm, eyes burning with desperation. They had to recruit this kid no matter the cost. Back home, I pinned a 10-pound carp down and prepped the rune nearby, just a safety precaution, of course. Abyssal monster die. I slammed the rune down onto the fish's body with everything I had. The rune smacked the fish, but the carp just thrashed wildly, slapping me across the face with its slimy tail. Total silence. This magic stuff is a scam. Without mana, these runes are just expensive, useless stickers. And where would I get mana? I'm just a guy whose cells were rewritten by a freak cancer mutation. Defeated, I tossed the fish aside. But on the sofa, Grim the cat was watching me with unadulterated terror. Its fur bristled. The cat saw me as an unfathomable monster playing a deadly game of psychological warfare. It was convinced I was baiting it into a trap. Truly, life as a secret demon is a nightmare. Ignoring the neurotic cat, I logged back into the game. The ruins were opening and the survival rate was 0. I needed to level up Ara's swordsmanship fast. As the screen flickered to life, my jaw hit the floor. Ara was wearing the silk nightgown I'd gifted her. It was a dangerously seductive, perfect fit. The sheer fabric clung to her curves, exposing her elegant back and tracing down to a daring thigh slit. Bathed in the warm glow of candlelight, she knelt upon the bed, her hands resting softly on her knees. Her cheeks were stained a deep crimson, and her delicate collarbones shimmered beautifully in the dim light. She looked up with watery, pleading eyes, radiating a sense of deep, breathless anticipation for what was next. "Mentor, please. Pour all your cultivation into me at once. I can take it." My heart nearly stopped. Those curves, that silhouette. I felt my throat go dry. Who could possibly resist? I struggled to keep my composure. One step at a time. Today, I will teach you the first 12 chapters of the Astral Blade. Suddenly, the game screen shifted. Ara's vision blurred as she was pulled into a dark, isolated dimension. Standing before her was my avatar, the legendary, silver-haired, white-robed magic swordsman. I quickly tapped the interaction button. The peerless sword sovereign walked right up to her, delivering a gentle, disciplinary tap to her head with his staff. Focus on the lesson. Ara's face turned a deep crimson instantly. For the next 12 hours, she practiced like her life depended on it. Her talent was frightening. She performed those 12 sword chapters with a grace that was truly heroic. By the end, she was drenched in sweat, her thin gown clinging to her skin as she panted with flushed cheeks. Leaning on her blade, she gazed at me with expectant eyes. Master, how was my performance? Your student is slow. It took me half a day just to grasp the very basics of the doorway. How long did it take you? I felt my face heat up and lied. Ahem. Back then, it only took me 10 minutes. Her eyes sparkled with pure adoration. The next day, the severed steel order completely erupted in chaos. Suin arrived with dwarven spirits, expecting to find her living in a broken stone shack on the mountain peak. Instead, the sight before him left him utterly speechless. Where on earth did the stone hut go? He saw elegant tiles, a flowing fountain, and 10 elite spiritual plots radiating immense magical energy. Not daring to disturb her, Suin set a concealment ward and raced back to the guild to gather everyone. A short while later, Ara pushed open her window and was instantly paralyzed by what she saw. The sky swarmed with apprentices on mana boards. Even Pavilion Master Balan and the elders had arrived. Terrified, she scurried back inside and pressed her back firmly against the door. She feared these poor cultivators were here to rob her. Outside, Senior Sister Freya laughed at the misunderstanding. "Stop hiding, little sister. This magnificent house was a gift from your master, wasn't it?" Balan wondered what powerhouse could build 10 spiritual fields so fast. Ara opened the door, blushing and stammering nervously. To her shock, the cultivators weren't there to rob her. They were lining up to present her with gifts. Freya gave rare seeds, Swin brought spirits, and another disciple offered a heavy blade-nourishing sword box. Within moments, healing elixirs and master-crafted throwing daggers were being piled into her arms. Magic scrolls and even a griffin egg were added to the mountain of treasure. Ara was left completely bewildered. Freya explained with a warm smile that this was a sacred tradition of their order. "The sword's path is brutal, and every apprentice is precious to us. We won't let our siblings die alone." Ara squeezed her sister's hand, swearing that she would survive this journey no matter what. Watching through my screen, I realized this ragtag guild actually had a very warm human heart. While I slept like a log grim, the black cat opened its golden eyes, releasing a suffocating abyssal aura. It glared at the dying carp in the water basin and let out a cold, sinister sneer. With one paw, it pressed the fish's brow, forcing a drop of demonic blood into its mind. This sneaky beast was convinced I was a hidden supreme master masking my true power. Fearing its identity might be exposed, it enlightened the carp to serve as its personal meat shield. Meanwhile, at the Demon Hunter Guild, the wounded Trinity reported to Captain Briggs. She dragged her broken body forward, her ribs shattered from the harrowing encounter she had survived. She spoke of divine runes and a high-rank horror in my home. Briggs's face turned pale with pure terror. Their guild had no one strong enough to fight. Confronting such a monster would be a suicide mission. He used a newly developed high-level breathing technique as a tempting lure for her, tricking Trinity into spying on me with a promised promotion once headquarters experts finally arrived. Tempted by the secret cultivation method, the naive girl agreed to the dangerous mission immediately. She left to hunt goblins as the vision shifted back to the digital world of the game. After morning class, Ara found Pavilion Master Balan napping peacefully in the high branches of a tree. She knelt desperately. "Pavilion Master. My master? Silus has been poisoned and his life is fading fast. As the Order's ancient grand mentor, I beg you to save him." Balan froze, paralyzed by dread. He had fabricated a story just to motivate Ara's cultivation. Since when did they have a mentor named Silus? But seeing her desperate face, he couldn't expose his lie. His mind raced as a plan formed. "My memories are slightly hazy," he lied. "Let us visit the Holy Relic Hall to verify the roster." Balin's scheme was simple. If Silas's name wasn't in the exhibition room, he would claim he was mistaken. He would blame his old age and confusion, brushing the entire troublesome matter aside with ease. Arriving at the crumbling relic room, Ara's eyes were bloodshot from anxiety as she searched the nameplates. Balan tried to persuade her from the side. "If you can't find it, let it go. I probably forgot." Just then, Ara hugged a bronze plate and screamed with joy. "I found it! I found him! Pavilion Master, I found my mentor's name?" Balan's head spun as he rushed over to look. On the highest tier sat a plate engraved with sesameths, though the middle letters were completely faded. This actually works? Balan rushed to the guard, but the old knight smacked him with the scabbard. Fool. That is the sacred nameplate of the first-generation Holy Sword ancestor. An abyssal dragon scratched it ages ago, erasing a letter. He even left a message on the monument. At the twilight of gods, only the sword remains eternal. Balan nearly fainted, his vision turning black. A random lie had turned into the absolute truth. Ara's mentor wasn't just some elder, he was the founder. The prestige of this revelation was enough to shatter the very heavens. Balan instantly changed his tune. We will sell everything and go bankrupt if we must. Our sect will save him. Ara felt a wave of relief, but she didn't stop there. She sprinted toward the Grand Library for answers. She needed the antidote recipe. Her heart burned with the desire to save her legendary master. Hearing she was the ancestor's disciple, the Grand Magus used his spiritual sense without a single doubt. He searched 300,000 volumes, instantly finally discovering a sacred alchemy tome on the 5th floor. But a rule remained: one must pass the Sword Heart trial by defeating a perfect illusionary self. The Magus expected a grueling battle lasting hours. He hadn't even finished explaining the rules yet. Suddenly, a violent crack echoed through the hall as the trial barrier shattered into 1,000 pieces. A pale-faced Ara walked out clutching her sword. The old Grand Magus stood there completely shell-shocked. This girl is a total fanatic. Her heart was entirely consumed by thoughts of me. Because the trial phantom claimed she couldn't save her mentor, she executed it with a single, devastating strike. Slashing through gods and Buddhas alike, nothing could stand in the way of her unwavering devotion. She secured the purification potion recipe. Back home the next morning, I heard 2 heavy thumps at the door. I thought it was a delivery and yanked the door open. Holy crap! The metallic stench of blood hit me instantly. A crimson trail smeared across the entire hallway. Trinity, the demon hunter who went hunting goblins, was mangled and covered in deep, bleeding gashes. She collapsed at my doorstep, clinging to life. Trinity, how did you end up in this state? I panicked and carried her inside. If she died in the hall, I'd never be able to explain this. I immediately called 911. The operator told me to begin emergency heart compressions right away. Without hesitation, I pressed down on her chest. Suddenly, a sickening crack echoed through the room. Trinity sprayed a fountain of blood onto the ceiling. Had my hidden strength become this terrifying? One press broke 3 of her ribs. I had to act fast and treat her like a miracle. I grabbed my system-gifted mithril needles, blurring as I struck her acupoints to stop the bleeding instantly. Watching from the shadows, the cat demon Grim felt his soul nearly leave his body in terror. He assumed this dying demon hunter was my high-ranking subordinate. Seeing a powerhouse personally use divine needles to save someone, my background must be absolutely monstrous. To protect itself, Grim rushed over and began frantically licking Trinity's face. Trying to show favor, Trinity finally regained consciousness, only to see a giant black cat face looming over. The soul-crushing pressure of an ancient monster slammed directly into her. Her eyes glazed over as she nearly died from pure dread. Fortunately, paramedics rushed in to save her. I exhaled, praying the nightmare was finished. Then the police suddenly knocked on my door. A bloody room and a mangled girl. It looked grim. They cuffed me instantly for interrogation. "Officer, I was just saving her," I explained. "I only removed her jacket for acupuncture." I pleaded my case frantically, but the cops just stared at me like some disgusting deviant. Suddenly, the interrogation room door swung open with a heavy, dramatic thud. Captain Briggs, the bearded hunter, flashed an FBI badge and took command, dismissing the local cops. This old fox entered, his sharp gaze scanning me like a high-tech laser. He'd scouted my house, sensing the authentic runes and the monstrous presence hiding within my walls. He knew I was no ordinary civilian. "Mr. Silus, I believe you're innocent." He smiled. Briggs sat down, grinning. "Really? Then give me back my phone," I countered. I stared at him desperately. Without my device, I felt completely naked. Briggs finally handed it over. I swiped the screen frantically, but to Briggs, I was just tapping on a dead black brick. In this world of awakened magic, there was only one possible explanation. This was a soul-bound holy relic. Briggs leaned in, his tone turning sharp and predatory. Brother Silas, that phone looks like an antique. Mind if I take a look? Sure, whatever. I exited the game and handed over my beat-up old iPhone. Briggs took it, swiping cautiously. As he stared at the screen, his face twisted in confusion. To his eyes, the screen was buried beneath a thick, impenetrable gray fog. He saw nothing, yet I had been totally immersed. This proved it was a legendary artifact. The phone was a bound relic. Briggs was internally reeling, his mind racing with shock. Outwardly, he stayed cool. He returned the phone and started fishing for my secrets. That rune on your door is impressive, Silas. Selling any? He grinned like a predator. I grew wary. This man wasn't just a cop. No normal officer buys scrap paper. I played hard to get, so he started shouting insane prices. $10,000–$15,000. Deal. I flashed my Venmo and slapped a crumpled Stormflame rune into his hand. Briggs's hand shook, terrified the volatile paper might explode right then and there. He vanished quickly, leaving a shady bar address. Back home, the pieces finally clicked together. The world had mutated. These beasts were actually horrific monsters from the abyss. Trinity and Briggs were demon hunters, part of a hidden global guild. I wasn't a cancer-ridden mutant. I was an awakened, all thanks to this mysterious mobile game. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream from the cleaning lady shattered my train of thought. A giant black-furred rat the size of a calf loomed in the hallway, stalking Trinity's scent. Its crimson eyes locked onto me. With a guttural snarl, it lunged like a dark gale. I raised my hands instinctively, bracing for the killing blow, but it never came. The beast screeched to a halt, trembling violently as it cowered before me. It was terrified of the storage box beside me, sensing the power of the attached rune. Time to play Mickey Mouse, you overgrown pest. I sneered at the beast. I slapped a rune onto its skull. Boom! A bolt of lightning incinerated the hallway. The shockwave was massive, obliterating doors and windows for 50 meters in every direction. Briggs arrived just in time to see the monster reduced to nothing but drifting ash. I stood there unharmed, my hand only slightly charred from the intense magical discharge. It turns out I wasn't some mutant freak after all. I was a master of lightning. Stunned, Briggs finally revealed the world's dark, hidden truth. The abyss has awakened once more, leading to the birth of the legendary Demon Hunter Guild. He is convinced my phone is a holy relic capable of forging runes, but creating something from nothing always demands a tragic sacrifice. Silas, what's the cost for a rune like this? Briggs's gaze pierced through me, making my heart sink. If I claim there's no price, I'd just become a human gold mine, or worse, a living health potion to be harvested. Would they dissect me for research? I pulled up my pant leg, exposing the horrific clusters of bone cancer lumps. The cost is my very life. With every rune I forge, the cancer devours more of my soul. I have 1 month left at most. Briggs froze, his face twisting with a guilt so sharp he looked ready to strike himself. As a proud captain, he'd actually swindled a dying man out of a priceless rune for a mere $15,000. With tear-streaked eyes, he begged me to join the guild, promising ancient breathing techniques that could sustain my life. He spoke of divine healers and the noble duty of shielding humanity from the encroaching dark. I watched the sun-drenched streets in silence before calmly shaking my head. Officer, my parents burned to death. By the time the insurance settled, I was left with only $2,000. Then came the terminal cancer diagnosis. Without money, the hospital doors were slammed in my face. My ex loathed me for my poverty and my fading life, leaving me for another. This world never offered me a hand when I was drowning. Now you expect me to be its protector? Honestly, the thought is sickening. Briggs stood speechless. I gripped my suitcase and vanished into the sea of people without a single glance back. Still, I promised to hunt monsters for bounties as a freelancer. Extra cash is always useful. Back in my small apartment, I felt a desperate urge to dive back into the game. Reality is a nightmare, but my digital companion is my only solace. On screen, Ala excitedly shared her day with me. She'd sought the Pavilion Master's help. Balan initially intended to expose my identity in the exhibition hall. Instead, he discovered a sacred nameplate. Suddenly, I was promoted from a mentor to the Order's first-generation ancestor. Balan immediately pledged everything he owned, ready to sacrifice his very fortune to save my life. Allah rushed to the library, securing the recipe for the legendary 100 herbs purification potion. But the greenhouse elder delivered grim news: two ancient ingredients were missing: dragon blood vine and deep-sea blueberries. Don't worry, mentor. The Middle Ear ruins are opening and they house a secret druid sanctuary. I'll find those ingredients myself. I refuse to let death take you. Era knelt there, her eyes swollen with tears, yet her gaze was burning with absolute resolve. My heart ached. In the real world, I was discarded like trash, but here this girl would risk everything for me. The scene shifted to a jagged cliffside, bathed in a sunset that bled across the horizon. Era tightened her pack as Balan and senior sister Freya stood before her. This path is paved with danger. Freya will escort you this time, Balan stated sternly. Freya, however, was a notorious drunkard. She draped an arm over the girl's shoulder. I'll protect you, little sis. But you're paying for my booze. Balin's face soured as he reluctantly pulled two heavy pouches of gold from his robe. Freya showed no mercy, prying the old man's fingers open one by one to snatch those 20 gold coins. We're out of here, old man, Freya shouted, dragging the girl along without a backward glance. With a cold huff, Balan mounted his flying sword and streaked across the sky like a burning comet. High above his sword, energy carved 4 massive words into the clouds. May holy light protect. I gripped my phone tight. She was risking her life in those ruins just to save mine. I couldn't just sit here and let cancer claim me. I poured another $5,000 into the system. On the screen, Era's voice trembled, her hands clutching her skirt in despair. Your disciple has no regrets, master. I don't care if I go blind brewing potions for you. How can you speak of final wishes and death? Please, master, don't give up. Her words struck a chord, igniting a flame in my cold, cancerous heart. A terminal illness isn't just an abyssal curse, it's far more terrifying than any spell. Yet even if she was just an AI, she was screaming for me to survive. Silus Lev, don't you dare give up. I activated the voice scroll and roared into the abyss. This exalted one will not fall, I will live. The heavens demand my death, but I refuse to submit. I will survive even if I have to slay gods. I need cold hard cash for specialized medicine that costs 1,500,000 per injection. 10 shots, 100 shots. As long as I have the money, I will conquer this illness and live. I kicked the door open with total confidence, but a petite girl outside shrieked and fell onto her backside. This was the girl sent by the Trinity Demon Hunter Guild to keep an eye on me. She was supposed to be monitoring me, but she and my cat Grim were huddled at opposite ends of the sofa. One human and one demon, both shaking like leaves in total terror. I skipped the small talk. What's the pay for stalking me? She gulped. 150 a day. I offered a 50-50 split. She immediately dropped to one knee and bowed like I was her king. Please let me monitor you. From now on, you are my own sworn blood brother. Deal. I tossed her into the guest room, the perfect spot for me to gather intelligence on her guild. That night I dragged her to the guild stronghold. My survival couldn't wait a single minute. It was time to hunt bounty missions and claim my rewards. As I opened the secret door at the Dragon Leap Internet Cafe, the heavy stench of blood hit me hard. 2 corpses lay on the floor, their heads hollowed out in a truly grisly and miserable display. The hunters were fuming with righteous fury, drawing their blades to avenge their fallen comrades. But Captain Briggs just took a deep drag of his cigar and yelled, "Retreat! Everyone out now!" Everyone froze in shock. The enemy was at our door and we were actually running away. Before he could finish, massive black webs instantly draped across the entire ceiling. A desk-sized weaver demon hung above us, its human face deathly pale and hauntingly still. It let out a bone-chilling laugh as its mouth split open. This silver rank monster had everyone paralyzed with fear. Briggs fired an enchanted shotgun blast, screaming for us to run while he held the line. The demon smashed through the wall and Briggs's agonizing screams soon echoed through the ruins. Trinity pulled me into a side alley. I casually asked, "Is that spider worth a lot of money?" She nodded frantically. "Of course, this monster is a major wanted criminal." $20,000, she cried. I stopped, instantly pulling a stack of Stormflame runes from my pocket. The logic was simple. If these runes can insta-kill wolf demons, they will work here too. To me, that spider looked like a walking paycheck. I ditched Trinity and headed back to the ruins. Briggs was a bloody mess, missing an arm while the spider mocked his pathetic weakness. He tried to use the rune I gave him earlier for one final desperate counterattack. But the magic was gone. As the spider prepared its lethal acid, I silently emerged from the shadows. The monster was sharp, spinning around to glare at me with murderous, predatory intent. It thought I was just using a smokescreen to save the captain. Big mistake. You think I'm bluffing? Watch me stick this right on your ugly face? It shrieked in rage, its claws frozen in midair. I didn't waste another second. I used a drying rack to jam a Thunderfire rune directly into its face. Briggs, stay down. Everything happened in a single breath. Boom! The world exploded into light. A blinding blast of thunder and fire tore through the floor, causing the building to cave in. The demon's prized carapace was blown into 1,000 tiny charred shards. Broken and smoking, the monster tried to crawl away into the darkness to escape. But as it reached the exit, Trinity was already waiting there with a cold stare. She slapped a final rune onto the door. One last bolt of lightning and the monster turned to ash. I climbed out of the rubble and dusted myself off when my phone suddenly buzzed. A game notification popped up. Target slain, reward demon crystal and mithril silk armor delivered. My eyes went wide. Slaying monsters in reality actually gave me loot in the game. Out of nowhere, a set of defensive soft armor materialized right on my bed. This holy relic wasn't even trying to hide its magic anymore. It was a total mess. Briggs crawled out from the rubble covered in tears and snot, desperately begging me to join the Demon Hunter Guild. I gave him a cold rejection, pocketed the $20,000 bounty, and walked away without looking back. My next stop was Trinity. I needed to fish for some much-needed information. Having just benefited from me, she let her guard down and spilled the guild's secret breathing technique. The prologue alone opens every node in the body. Volume 1 guides mana directly into the core. Suddenly my brain buzzed with realization. Everything finally clicked into place. No wonder my right leg felt light as air after I used that advanced acupoint piercing technique on myself earlier. The mana from my crystal bracelet had surged through my meridians, strengthening my muscles instantly. In other words, I can master the tidal mysteries too, as long as my entire mana circuit is unlocked. Once I push the Holy Spirit acupoint technique to master level and clear my meridians, I'll be able to wield real magic in reality. Forget being some freakish tumor Superman. It's time for a legendary upgrade. Now Grand Mentor Silus is taking center stage. I raced home, bolted the bedroom door, and summoned the game panel. To evolve the acupoint technique from high tier to master level, I needed to spend 1,000 credits in the game. I'll spend whatever it takes to survive. Not a single cent will be spared. I turned my eyes to the screen. Ara and my eldest disciple Freya were resting at a small inn. Freya was as wild and uninhibited as ever. She casually tossed her shirt aside, leaving poor Ara trembling under the blankets, too terrified to even look. I didn't care about the fan service. I immediately invested my funds and deployed a high-tier mana array. 10 top-quality mana crystals fell from the heavens, flooding the entire room with an overwhelming magical pressure. Ara let out a soft whimper, while Freya, completely exposed, stared at the array in pure shock. Her heart nearly stopped as the terrifying truth set in. Her mentor could see everything. I didn't have time for her embarrassment. I kept maxing out my credit limit in the shop to reach that 1,000 mark. Then I spotted a limited time item, the Astral Skyship. Price 1,500 credits. Its speed rivaled a Grand Magus, and it came with fully autonomous flight. The perfect way to travel. Above the city of Qinghe, space itself tore open as a massive steampunk airship descended from the void. The city guards fell to their knees in awe, crying out that a divine miracle had manifested. System prompt? Spend 15 to use the secret Art Titan's hand to move the array without disturbing your apprentice's cultivation. A small price to pay. Suddenly, a semi-transparent massive arcane hand reached down from the heavens. Its giant fingers spread wide, clutching the entire inn where the girls were staying. It ripped the building from its foundations, shook out the other guests, and hurled the inn onto the ship's deck like a football. Touchdown, a perfect landing. The airship immediately rocketed toward Emerald Star Valley at full speed. I finally let out a long breath of relief. My head began to throb. The system warned that the master-level breakthrough would take 6 hours, overloading my brain capacity. The moment my head touched the pillow, I slipped into a deep, heavy sleep. When I wake up, my mana will finally be unlocked. Meanwhile, the ship tore through the clouds all through the night. At daybreak, Freya stretched and opened the door only to freeze in absolute terror on the spot. Instead of a busy street, she saw an endless sea of clouds. Right outside the door sat the ship's massive core engine. The entire inn had been uprooted. Ara looked at the chaotic surroundings, her eyes shimmering with deep emotion. She was convinced that Mentor had used a legendary divine ability just to ensure their cultivation went undisturbed. Mentor is truly the best. But as they leaned over the ship's railing, a sudden mutation occurred. Boom! With a deafening crash, the ship slammed headfirst into Emerald Star Valley, shattering its ancient illusion barrier. Half the massive hull was now wedged deep into the barrier's magical nexus. This forced a massive breach in the city's grand array. The entire Emerald Star Valley descended into absolute chaos. Mages scrambled in panic. High atop the inn's roof, two powerful figures descended from the sky. It was Elena, the heir of the valley, and her burly, bald knight commander, who sported a striking shade of lipstick. Just last night, Elena had ordered the barrier to be opened, planning to make life difficult for the Severed Steel Order. Her morning began with a bang, literally as a massive skyship reduced her front door to splinters. She glared at Freya, her icy eyes narrowing into a mocking sneer, and here I was wondering what trash had arrived. Just more mice from the Severed Steel Order? How did you beggars even afford a ship with those rusted blades? You dare act this arrogant after crashing headfirst into my Emerald Star Valley's grand array? Freya's temper flared instantly. Unsheathing her massive crossguard sword, she leveled it at them and spat a curse. Who are you calling mice? Keep talking and I'll cleave you in two right where you stand. But before she could strike, the bald knight commander standing nearby let out a chilling snort. A crushing aura descended like a falling mountain, pinning Freya to the spot and paralyzing her every muscle. A Grand Magus, level powerhouse. The commander's face contorted with a cruel, vulgar grin as her voice boomed. Young master, why even waste your breath on these two pathetic pieces of garbage? The brute advanced her berserk aura, locking onto them as she drew a massive black axe with a hideous smirk. I'll chop off their limbs and rot them in the dungeon until their order pays their weight in gold. As the axe swung, Elena raised a hand to stop her. I'm a woman of my word. I'll give them one chance. With a cold sneer, she threw a golden lotus that detonated, dragging Alara and Freya into the terrifying nightmare barrier. Break the array first, then maybe we can talk about that medicine. Inside the barrier, a barrage of vicious mental attacks began clawing at their very souls. Visions of betrayal and her parents' tragic deaths played out, but Alara didn't even blink. But then the vision shifted. She saw me, her mentor, bloodied and being torn apart by a pack of ghouls. They'd finally crossed the line. Alara's eyes turned blood red as she drew her sword, staring into the void above. Her killing intent literally ripped the sky apart. This girl was ready to sever the heavens themselves in one strike. Meanwhile, in reality, I was fast asleep until a piercing alarm from my phone jolted me wide awake. The screen flashed red. Warning, your digital apprentice has defied the laws of heaven. Divine, lightning strike imminent. Are you kidding me? I dove out of bed, tapping my screen frantically to force an emergency stop. Clang, a mental bell cleared Alara's mind. With her safe, I turned my attention to the eldest sister, Freya. That reckless woman was currently paralyzed, completely consumed by her own inner demons. She was rolling in the mud, screaming about a fire. I quickly messaged Alara, quick slap some sense into her. Hearing my voice, Alara burst into tears of relief. She knew I was alive and that it was all a lie. Wiping her eyes, she pulled a basin of ice water and a leather whip straight from her system inventory. Forgive me for this, senior sister. After a quick, respectful salute, she soaked the whip and delivered a savage backhand strike. Crack. The icy shock and searing pain sent Freya bolting upright with a scream. Man, my apprentice sure is ruthless. I love it, but that annoying barrier was still there. I opened the cash shop and scanned the pay-to-win options. A standard array breaker was only a few $100, but that wasn't flashy enough. Option 3 caught my eye. $6,000 to ascend to the legendary realm and unleash the Astral Blade Codex. Emerald Star Valley dared to touch my disciple. Fine. I'll give them a lesson they'll never live to forget. I slammed the purchase button on option 3. Time for a legendary beatdown. I donned my VR helmet, and in a flash I was floating above the nightmare barrier draped in majestic white robes. Alara's eyes sparkled with pure adoration. Striking a cool pose, I spoke solemnly. Disciple, watch carefully. Today I'll teach you true power. As my blade left its sheath, the entire sky of Ethelgard began to warp. Even the high noon sun was instantly choked out by an overwhelming divine darkness. The heavens transformed into a deep, infinite void, reflecting the shimmering light of 1,000 galaxies. My legendary aura crushed Emerald Star Valley like a divine millstone. Elena, once so arrogant, now looked like a ghost. She stumbled out and collapsed to her knees, her entire body trembling like a leaf in a hurricane. "My lord, spare me, we can talk," I simply sneered. "Amends, you're a bit late for that." Witness the might of my blade. Treading upon the stars themselves, I brought my sword down in a final devastating strike. Heaven and earth flipped as the galaxy descended. One blade split the endless dark. Boom, starlight shattered into 1,000,000 blades. A celestial waterfall crashed down, burying Emerald Star Valley in raw power. That single strike left even me completely speechless. I only used 80% of my strength. Yet the massive 100 Flowers Peak was sliced clean in half. An abyssal rift tore through the plaza, the berserk arcane sword key screaming within the void. Through the rising dust, a white-haired figure emerged, struggling to block the aftershocks while spitting blood. It was the Emerald Star Valley Master herself. She knelt amidst the ruins, begging for mercy. "My lord, please show compassion. I'll accept any punishment." 10 seconds remained on my avatar timer. Time to vanish like a mysterious god. This exalted one foresaw that your valley shares a profound destiny with my blade. I shall return to swing my sword again soon. With that, I logged off in style. Checking my phone, I saw Elena had become as submissive as a frightened bird. They offered priceless herbs for free, even taking my junk as collateral just to please me. The wounded Valley Master gazed at my sword scar as if it were a divine relic. She ordered the entire sect to meditate on my peerless sword intent daily. I literally leveled her home, yet she treats me like a living deity. Game business concluded. In reality, my Holy Spirit Needle technique reached Grandmaster completion. A few quick strikes, and I can finally awaken my mana circuits to begin true cultivation. Safety first, though. I needed a test subject. My gaze locked onto my cat. Grim was sharp. Seeing the needles, the beast scrambled across the room in pure terror. I caught him with a feint. "Be a good boy, Grim. Just one tiny poke. Work hard, and you might earn some premium treats." Grim's eyes burned with silent, humiliated rage. Unbeknownst to me, this was no house cat, but an ancient, abyssal behemoth. The needles blurred into motion. Grim was frozen instantly by my lightning-fast technique. He prepared to fight for his life, but suddenly his eyes widened with pure ecstasy. The energy wasn't hurting him, it was expanding his meridians with overwhelming force. As I finished, my roommate Trinity stepped out of her room. She stood there dazed by the blur of my godlike hand speed. She handed me a device. "Brother Silus, this is a specialized Demon Hunter Guild watch. It detects nearby monsters. Take it perfect." I immediately aimed it at Grim. Scanning, green light, result. Just a cute kitty, how disappointing. I expected more from this lazy cat. Beside me, Grim licked his paw, sneering. An abyssal lord can mask its presence perfectly. No human tech could find him. I tried again, aiming the watch at a carp I bought for dinner. Beep. Red lights flashed, warning mutant detected. I gasped. Trinity. Look, this fish is actually a sea monster. If I cook this thing, will my mana skyrocket? The carp thrashed in terror, slapping its fins as Trinity turned pale as a ghost. She feared the carp was a servant to the all-powerful Cat King. Panicking, she begged me not to anger the cat by eating its follower. Brother, monster meat is cursed. You absolutely cannot eat it. Desperate, the fish spat out a glowing magic pearl. My eyes gleamed with greed. 1 pearl a week and you live. Deal. The fish nodded eagerly. Welcome, Little Green. Free money every month. Little Green is my new lucky charm. This venture is pure gold. Time to return that aquatic titan to the deep. I sent Trinity on a wild pizza run to the city outskirts. Finally, sweet silence. Shirt off, silver needles out. It's time for Grand Mentor Silus to grace the stage. The legendary master acupoint technique, I plunged the needles into my primary nodes without hesitation. Needle after needle, a wave of agonizing pain and divine ecstasy surged through me. My senses exploded. I could smell the wind and my vision became sharp as a hawk's. Success! I gripped my fist, feeling a torrential tide of power awakening within. I lunged forward, throwing a heavy strike at the wall. Crack! My hand swelled instantly. I writhed in agony. Opening my circuits didn't mean I was superhuman, not yet. With 0 mana in my veins, I was just punching stone with raw, fragile flesh. Magic follows its own laws, apparently. Nursing my pride, I opened the mobile game. On the interface, the once-dormant Tidal Mysteries cultivation path was now glowing brilliantly. If I master this, I can control true mana. I hit learn without a second thought. Roar. The deafening thunder of crashing ocean waves echoed through my very soul. My vision shifted to a vast blue horizon where a phantom mage walked upon the tides. With every motion, the sea bowed and mana swirled into devastating, majestic whirlpools. The vision vanished, replaced by the first scroll written in complex, ancient elven script. Total silence. Even Google Translate was useless. My science degree couldn't decipher this mystical elven gibberish. Having the ultimate power right in front of my eyes, but being unable to read it, it was a fate worse than death. Desperate, I saw Ara on the screen. She looked flustered, her cheeks a deep crimson. My earlier poke clearly worked. New plan, let the expert teach the master. I cleared my throat and activated the telepathic voice scroll. I spoke with authority. You have been cultivating the Tidal Mysteries for some time? This path is profound and difficult. Today, your mentor shall test your progress. Her eyes sparkled like stars. Excitement was written all over her beautiful face. She sat cross-legged, moving with exaggerated care as if she were a mere beginner. Your disciple is slow, mentor. Please guide me through the parts I still lack. This wasn't a test. She was basically spoon-feeding me every secret of the technique. I watched the screen like a hawk, my fingers blurring as I worked. I took dozens of screenshots and recordings. So that's how the hand seals work. Focus on elemental balance, not tap water. Your foundation still needs work. Next, demonstrate the mana circulation. Show your master. I kept my poker face steady. Ara was completely defenseless and followed my instructions without a single question. She mapped the entire path from the crown node to the spinal circuit and star sea. When she finished, she lowered her head, looking absolutely adorable and embarrassed. Your apprentice's understanding is crude. It doesn't compare to even a tenth of Mentor's. I beg Mentor to resolve my doubts. My head was spinning. Crude? Seriously? If that was crude, my knowledge was absolute zero. She looked at me expectantly. I couldn't even form 2 sentences of actual magical theory to save my life. Time for my secret weapon. I took a breath and roared into the scroll. With the dying embers of the abyss, I forge my own destiny. Even if winter comes, I am the storm. The light is eternal. Magic is everlasting. Pure cringe from old fantasy novels. But after I sent it, the void went silent. My heart hammered like a war drum. Could I actually bluff my way through this? Unbelievably, the system translated my nonsense into a divine booming voice that echoed with sacred authority. A majestic roar filled Ayla's room as light and shadow danced in a perfect elemental resonance. This wasn't mere mana, it was the primordial essence of heaven and earth remolding her very soul. As she glimpsed the ultimate truth, her eyes sparkled with newfound, brilliant realization. Suddenly, a blinding azure explosion of light erupted from her core. Endless water elements surged toward her like a monstrous tsunami, instantly propelling her beyond her current rank. In one heart-pounding instant, she shattered her cultivation bottleneck with sheer, overwhelming force. Now a mid-tier mage, Ala knelt toward the void with trembling respect, offering a master's salute. Mentor has bestowed everything upon me without limit. This sacred teaching is like a second birth. I swear I will never betray your expectations. Seeing her tearful devotion, I broke into a cold sweat. Did my nonsense really trigger an epiphany? She truly is a genius disciple. Moments later, our skyship hovered above the severed steel order. Meanwhile, at the back mountain pavilion, Master Balan stared at a dark cave with greedy, shimmering eyes. This old miser was so desperate for gold that he targeted a passing skyship. He had no clue his own top apprentice was currently on board that vessel. With a reckless gesture, he summoned the legendary guardian beast, Biasta, a mountain-sized wolf of myth. "Big Husky, shred that ship, I will find you a mate later," Balan bellowed as the beast howled. With blood-red eyes, the creature transformed into a black whirlwind and lunged toward the heavens. Seeing the threat, Freya's face turned pale as she screamed, "Master, stop! It is us!" Balin's greedy grin instantly shattered into pure terror, and he desperately threw himself into the air. "Stop, you cursed beast!" But it was far too late. Blinded by the promise of a wife, the massive wolf crashed head first into the ship's magical defenses. At that soul-crushing moment, I burned through my currency to manifest my avatar. Space tore open and I stepped out, hair gleaming white. Ignoring the foolish beast, I delivered a devastating mid-air whip kick directly into that massive wolf's skull. Bang, the void itself fractured. A violent shockwave rippled through the clouds, blasting the skyship back hundreds of meters from the impact. That arrogant legendary beast was repelled 10 times faster than it had originally charged up. It became a dark meteor, crashing violently into the mountainside far below with a sickening thud. Half the hill disintegrated as pathetic whimpers echoed out. I stood mid-air, arms crossed, looking down at the chaos. Looking at the trembling Balan, I let out a cold, sharp warning. If this happens again, I will personally roast wolf meat tonight. With that, I logged off in style. The scene shifts back to the Order's greenhouse. They had the herbs, but brewing the cure required a legendary crucible capable of enduring hellish temperatures. The Alchemist Guild president possessed the dragon crucible, but the arrogant man despised all sword cultivators. He viewed us as mere beggars. Ala bit her lip in frustration, her heart sinking with every second. "Is there truly no hope?" The elder revealed a grim, tattered scroll. An ancient druid fragment suggested using a living mage as the furnace itself. A water mage must leap into the flames using their life force to purify the herbs. Balan furiously trashed the scroll. "This is forbidden dark magic. Burn this trash immediately. I would rather rob the alchemists." The elders broke into a heated, desperate argument. Amidst the shouting, Ala quietly retrieved the fragment, her gaze hardening with a terrifyingly calm resolve. "Pavilion Master, for my mentor's sake, I will offer my own life as the vessel." My heart stopped as I watched. Was this reckless girl truly planning to sacrifice herself? She spun around, leaping straight into the massive cauldron filled with raging alchemical hellfire. Sealing the lid behind her, she vanished. She'd even begged the elders for a soundproof barrier, terrified her. Agonizing screams might break my focus. On the monitor, magic arrays flared to life, and frantic flames consumed the entire pot. I watched the screen, my fists trembling with helpless rage. I need power, real power. Suddenly, the system battle pass pulsed with a fresh notification. A purple tier blind box materialized. The elemental affinity box. I opened it without a second's delay. A golden bolt of lightning struck the screen. Rare talent acquired, Heart of Thunder, the ultimate lightning magic. A top-tier single-attribute talent. The Heart of Thunder was finally delivered. Thunder crashed violently within my mind. Checking my inner sea, I saw a magic sapling pulsing with berserk electricity sprouting from the barren ground of my dantian. Pure mana swirled toward it from all directions, now infused with the destructive aura of lightning. Everything was ready. It was time. I sat cross-legged, activating the tidal mystery technique I'd been taught. Mana flowed through my crown like silken threads racing along my meridians to form a massive magic vortex in my star sea. With a faint pop, a wisp of pure energy rose from my head and vanished into the air. My eyes snapped open, power surged through my very bones. I let out a wild laugh. I'd finally crossed the threshold into the world of magic. Tier 1 Magic Apprentice. I gripped my hand and mana surged toward my right fist like a rising storm. Brimming with confidence, I squared up against a load-bearing wall. I twisted my waist and unleashed a devastating punch. Bang, damn it! A pathetic scream of pure agony tore through the entire apartment complex. 10 minutes later, I was icing my hand, now a swollen purple mess. I was far too reckless. I've awakened my circuits, but my physical foundation is still trash. My body just isn't strong enough yet. Without a magic shield, that punch was basically suicide. I need money, and I need it now. Money is everything. Without cash for specialized medicine, I'm as good as dead anyway. I tapped my Demon Hunter smartwatch eyes, scanning the mission board with desperate intensity. One mission caught my eye. Investigate the Century New City construction site. A 50,000 credit bounty for clearing the Scourge. Plus another 50,000 bonus. This is the one. 100 grand, and it's close by. Let's do it. I just accepted when Trinity burst through the door, gasping for air. She yelled at me, hands on her hips. Silus, are you crazy? You can't just take that mission. It's a death trap. 3 bronze-ranked hunters have already vanished there. I ignored her, silently pulling on my jacket. The pay is high, but you won't live to spend it. She stomped her feet, trembling with worry. I gave her a cold stare. Without money for my treatment, I'm dead either way. If you're scared, stay home. That pushed her over the edge. Face flushing red, she grabbed her steel spear. Who's scared? Let's go. We took a cab straight to the site. The night was ink black and the heavy iron gates were chained shut. Surprisingly, 4 college girls were loitering outside, chattering about exploring the haunted grounds. Their eyes lit up when they saw me. A blonde girl even rushed over, grabbing my arm with an infatuated grin. Hey, handsome, what's your Insta? I wasn't in the mood for words. I let her scan my code just to clear the path, sternly warning them to stay away from the site. Then Trinity and I vaulted over the high perimeter wall and vanished into the darkness. We hadn't gone far when a blood-curdling scream echoed from the gate. Trinity's face went pale. Her watch flashed a violent red. Abyssal monster, something's happening back at the entrance. Before she could finish, I bolted. Mana surged through my legs like a lightning strike. I grabbed her shoulder, moving so fast it felt like we were teleporting through the dark night. The wind roared in our ears. Before she could even blink, we reached the gate. The stench of blood was overwhelming. Under a flickering streetlight stood a monstrous silhouette over 7 feet tall and terrifyingly humanoid. Its back was to us, but the sound of bone-chilling crunching filled the air. Distracted by the noise, the ghoul paused, carelessly dropping a round object. As the moonlight hit it, Trinity's blood ran cold with pure horror. It was a partially devoured human head, the very same blonde girl who had just asked for Silas's account information. The monster let out a jagged, bone-chilling screech and violently swung its massive blood-stained arm. A mangled female corpse hurtled toward them like a gruesome cannonball aimed straight for their skulls. Behind the body, a smoke-shrouded claw ripped through the air toward Silus. "Dodge!" Trinity screamed in absolute despair, scrambling away in terror. Instead of retreating, Silus stood firm, his gaze icy. Suddenly, the sharp ring of steel echoed through the darkness. Ignoring the incoming body, he gripped his hilt and drew his blade in a blur. The draw and the strike were one fluid motion. A flash of lightning-white swordlight carved a brilliant line across the night. The flying corpse didn't stand a chance, instantly split down the middle by his blade. That same devastating slash cleaved through the hidden claw and the ghoul's massive frame, tearing the monster in two. Foul black ichor sprayed across Silas's face, but he didn't flinch. He calmly flicked the blood off his rune sword with a cold glare. "You know, I actually liked the way she called me handsome," he whispered with chilling calm. A wet, gurgling sound escaped the ghoul's mangled throat as the cold grip of death finally took hold. It pathetically wheezed for mercy, stammering about a misunderstanding. But for Silas, there was no room for excuses. With a backhanded flash of steel, the ghoul's head spiraled into the sky. Its massive body collapsed with a heavy final thud. But the nightmare wasn't over. The moment the head hit the ground, gross tentacles erupted from its severed neck. It skittered away like a demonic spider, sneering hideously. "The Demon King's revival is coming. The Hunter Guild is doomed," thinking it could escape not on his watch. Silas's expression remained terrifyingly neutral. His eyebrows twitched as power surged through his legs. With a deafening boom, the concrete shattered beneath his violent stomp. He blurred into a flickering afterimage, vaulting across the rusted steel beams of the abandoned construction site with predator-like grace. His speed was a blinding streak of white light. The ghoul's head glanced back, its eyes bulging with pure, unadulterated terror. With a mid-air somersault, Silas landed perfectly in its path, blocking any hope of escape. His blade tip rested right between its eyes. The monster shrieked, begging for its life and promising to talk. "Shut up and drop your loot," Silus commanded. He raised his hand and the blade descended. The strike pulverized the head, pinning the remains to the wall. The system chimed, "Abyssal Ghoul slain." Obtained one demon crystal fragment. Sheathing his weapon, Silus turned back to check on Trinity. The girl was huddled in a corner behind some scrap metal, her head down as she shook uncontrollably. "Hey, stop being a scaredy cat," he joked, waving a hand. But before he could finish, a sinister shift occurred. Trinity snapped her head up, her eyes hauntingly hollow. Like a striking viper, she lunged with her spear, aiming directly for Silas's face. However, with Silas's enhanced perception fully active, the attack moved at a snail's pace. He tilted his head slightly, dodging the tip before snatching the spear shaft. Using his core strength, he executed a violent shoulder throw, slamming Trinity and her weapon hard against the floor. A sharp scream escaped her lips as she crashed into a pile of junk. Silus moved in his eyes, locking onto a bizarre red-bellied spider latched onto the back of her neck. The parasite was controlling her. Realizing it was spotted, the creature scurried to flee its legs, moving in a blur. The rune sword flashed instantly, bisecting the spider. Another fragment acquired, but someone else was watching. A muffled grunt echoed from the floor above. Silus put his sword in his mouth, biting down as he prepared to give chase. Mana flooded his limbs, granting him supernatural adhesion to his hands and feet. Like a shadowborn Spider-Man, he scaled the vertical exterior wall with terrifying speed, defying gravity in the dead of night. As he reached the rooftop, a killing intent flared from behind. "Hunter brat, you've got some nerve coming up here to die." A death cultist, draped in black robes and wearing a grim skull mask, lunged out of the shadows. He brandished a pitch-black dagger, thrusting it towards Silas's heart, like a venomous fang seeking its mark. Without even turning around, Silus snatched the blade from his mouth and unleashed a devastatingly powerful horizontal slash. The basic moves of the Astral Blade Codex had no flair, only pure, unadulterated speed and ruthless efficiency. The sword and dagger collided with a violent spark, followed by the sharp crack of breaking steel. The death cultist was sent flying by a devastating shockwave. Staring at his shattered, cursed blade, he stammered in total shock. "Impossible! This is forged from black steel. Just what kind of monster are you?" With a cold gaze, I stepped forward toward the dropped loot. Terror-stricken, he collapsed and scrambled backward toward the roof's edge. He desperately threw a pile of junk on the ground, kowtowing madly. "Take my treasures. Just spare me, I have a family at home." I stopped, my eyes narrowing as I stared him down. "Got money?" I asked, thrusting my payment code into his face. "Transfer it. Your remaining life depends on the total amount." Why grind for bounties when robbing villains is faster profit? The cultist froze. In this magical chaos, he wanted dollars. Shivering, he didn't dare hesitate and scanned the digital code. 580,000. That's Everything, I swear, my lord. He forced a hideous, trembling smile. Can I live now? I checked the balance. 10 grand by zero point 0.1 seconds. I'll round up. You've got 6 seconds. You're welcome. Rage flared in his eyes. Too late. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. My blade flashed in a lethal arc, sending his head spinning skyward. I shredded the remains. System cultist slain. Obtained crystal fragments. After collecting the loot, I vaulted down from the skyscraper. Police sirens wailed as Hunter Guild vehicles swarmed the site. Trinity, clutching her broken ribs, scanned the area in agony. "Find Silus!" she cried, just as I emerged, blade dripping. "Silus, you're safe!" she gasped. I brushed past her, focused ahead. The lead reinforcements weren't the captain, but a legendary elder. When he saw me, he froze as if struck by lightning. Old Arthur's hands trembled, his voice cracking in absolute shock.